stories concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of...
Romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Talk Breakfast. I'm Russell Quirk, in for Alex Phillips, here until 10 o'clock. We have, as you would expect, lots and lots to talk about. A bit of a migrant special this morning, I'm afraid. There is lots and lots to bring you, to pontificate about, to opinionate about, to discuss and debate with regard to what can only be called a migrant crisis. Now, I don't want to over-egg it, but it is a migrant crisis, isn't it? Let me know what you think about the issues and incidents over the last hours and days, really, particularly overnight, with regard to many instances of protests and flare-ups outside migrant hotels, from Canary Wharf and the Barbican up to Manchester, Newcastle. These protests are gathering pace, and whilst I want to be clear that, of course, I and we here at Talk will not be encouraging anything more animated than peaceful vocal protest, it does appear that heckles are up, and there was certainly some trouble insofar as some of those protests yesterday. But I put it to you that where that trouble actually comes from is from the left. Those masked Antifa thugs that seem to be bussed in, if not by the police, by someone certainly has a strategy, someone certainly has a process going on whereby lots and lots of these masked Antifa thugs with their copycat billboards that they seem to pick up from the back of a van somewhere that say "refugees welcome," "stop the far right," those individuals, those anarchists, I would say, are infiltrating these protests of local people, parents and individuals that are very, very concerned about what is happening to Britain, particularly when it comes to migration that, of course, is unchecked, particularly when it comes to people that come here on boats illegally. Of course, they enter, they claim asylum. Most of that is fake, in my opinion. They are, of course, economic migrants, but they claim asylum. And we're up to 25,000 of those, and we are only just in August of this year. So in just 7 months, 25,000 illegal migrants by boat, plus all the others that, of course, come here and either overstay their welcome or still come in on the back of lorries. And, of course, the concern is from those protesters, those peaceful local people, those parents, those individuals in the likes of Canary Wharf, the Barbican, Manchester, Newcastle, and, as I say, spreading, I'm afraid, to other parts of the country. The concern is that this isn't just about migration. This isn't just a concern about people that are here that perhaps should not be. It's not even just about the drain that those people might have on our economy, our NHS, our housing infrastructure. It is the problem that often, and not with everyone, but often, the illegal migration problem. Those that come here with malintent. They come here as criminals. Some are even terrorists. Let me give you an example. Overnight we hear of 2 asylum seekers from Afghanistan that have been charged, not found guilty of course, but have been charged over the alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Now this is off the back of the Epping protest that kicked off 3 or 4 weeks ago, of course off the back of someone that has been charged with alleged sexual offences, numbering at least 3 offences, and again not proven, not found guilty, but charges that have been laid by the police against migrants, illegal migrants, asylum seekers that are committing sexual offences. Is it any wonder that the people of Britain, ordinary law-abiding taxpayers, individuals that want Britain to simply be Britain, are rather concerned that 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 migrants, all male by the way, are being dumped in the middle of our towns with no warning, no integration, and we expect that to go off well. Well, guess what? It isn't. So we will be talking about that and a lot more over the next 3 or 4 hours. It won't just be migrants though, of course. We will also be talking about Hamas, who want Jerusalem to be the Palestine state capital. Of course they do. We'll also be talking about Jeremy Corbyn. He's doing rather well, and I'm glad that Jeremy Corbyn's doing rather well. Talk about split the left vote. That's fantastic news, I think, if you are of a sensible centre-right persuasion. We'll be going through the front pages of the papers. They're all very varied this morning. Yes, lots and lots and lots to talk about. But particularly the first hour, this migration issue kicked off, personified, characterised by what is happening across the country with regard to generally peaceful, legitimate protest by people of this country that are concerned about what is being imposed upon us. No one voted for this, by the way. In fact, the majority of the public, when they're polled, actually say the opposite, that they do not want to see such an influx of migration, legal, illegal or otherwise. I will have Charlie Rowley on later on. I'll also have the head-to-head. Now, this is going to be fun. Make sure you're around at 8:20 because the wonderful Chloe Dobbs will be facing off against my friend and yours, Jim Dale. Yes, Jim Dale, the individual that has something to say about climate, I think it's fair to say, and that he and I don't think we've ever agreed on anything, so that's going to be fun. And Ryan Sabey, also from The Sun, will be talking about what's in his newspaper. But I'm delighted to say, first, for the next hour and a half, I'm delighted and honoured to be joined by Duncan Barks.
Morning.
Morning, how are you? Thanks for making it in from Sussex this morning.
No, absolute pleasure. Love coming in at this early hour.
Well, there's a bit to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
And I'm afraid, and look, people would say, yeah, but your talk, it's all you ever talk about, is migration. But there's a lot to talk about on the basis that I think there's a lot happening that is triggering, I think it's fair to say. Not just triggering in terms of the people that might be watching talk, but triggering in terms of the population of Britain. Now, I'm afraid, and again, I say this without any intention to incite, but rising up peacefully to say, enough is enough. You cannot keep bringing these people in. Bearing in mind, I think not only are we up to 25,000 boat migrants in the first 7 months of this year, but I think it was Friday, 900 arrived. There's a cost of that. And of course, I think there was a think tank very recently, Duncan, that said it costs up to £400,000 per migrant over the life of that migrant in Britain, in terms of housing, NHS, the 46 quid a week that they get, and so on and so on. And yet it seems that some of them have rather a high propensity to commit offences. There's a particular hotel, I think it's the one at the Barbican, which has 40 migrants within it, that over the last 3 years have been charged with a total of 91 offences. What on earth is going on?
There's a lot going on, and it's really disturbing, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, and people have, as we've seen with these demonstrations, have had enough. Now, we need to make the point, and you did a few moments ago, people have the right for peaceful protest in this country, and we wouldn't advocate for anything else. However, there does seem to be this almost two-tier approach developing, where if you rock up at a protest that is peaceful and you're under the banner of stand up to racism, you can walk around with your face covered and wearing a mask or whatever, and the police, as I believe, have the discretion to say, take that mask off because the law has been passed, but they don't particularly decide to go down that route. So we see these people with their masks and their faces covered, which, one, I think is disturbing, and two, I would argue that if it was people who might be deemed as far right, and I don't want to see the far right infiltrating peaceful protests because it doesn't help the cause. But if they had masks, they'd be told to take them off. So I think there's an element of this two-tier approach going on.
It is discretionary, and of course we saw in Epping, I mean, it wasn't on the first day, but after a few days of those protests developing, the police did then at last say, well, actually, yeah, maybe masks aren't such a good idea. Pretty hard to identify someone that's committed an offence in the distance if they're wearing a mask. But of course they haven't imposed that. They didn't impose that, it seems, across the various protests yesterday. Why do we think that whoever it is, whether they are right or left, why do we think people might want to wear masks as a protest, Duncan?
Well, I would suggest that possibly there's something in their background that they don't really want exposed, or maybe they've got, to use the lovely, delicious, old-fashioned term, a bit of previous, Russell.
Or they have malintent.
Or they have malintent, and they don't want to be identified that easily. I mean, I think there is a massive problem with how this is being dealt with, and it goes back over the last 12 months to this approach that Keir Starmer has taken to the riots that we had last year and now, which is this: anyone who protests, therefore, is some kind of nasty far-right thug, and that is not the case. These people who are protesting are local residents, on the whole, who are concerned about what's happening in their community. And they're right to be concerned for a number of reasons, chiefly because the 25,000 people who've arrived in this country since the start of the year illegally are coming from cultures who have a very low respect for women, right? They have a very different attitude to females compared to our set of values, and that automatically is going to cause some problems. And we're seeing it this morning with these two Afghan asylum seekers who have been charged. They deny the allegations, but they have been charged, right?
And this is Ahmed Mulakil and Mohammed Kabir, both from Afghanistan, both 23, charged with one actually with rape and one with aiding and abetting rape.
And if you look at the story in the Mail on Sunday, what part of this problem that we're seeing, which makes people really even more angry than they are already, is the fact that some sources told the Mail on Sunday that Warwickshire Police advised local councillors and officials not to reveal the background of the two suspects for fear of inflaming community tensions. So when you start going down that route, people start going, well, you're covering this up, right? You shouldn't be covering it up because we have a right to know.
Well, Duncan and everybody, and by the way, if you have an opinion on this, 0344 499 1000, or get the text going, 87222 plus the word talk. Let me know what your opinion is of this. I mean, do you think we should be protesting? I certainly do, albeit peacefully. Or do you think we should wind our necks in and just allow what is happening to happen? If you were involved yesterday on any side as a peaceful protester, whether you're of a left-wing persuasion, a right-wing persuasion, if you think all refugees should be welcome, or indeed you are anti-migration to one extent or another, do let me know. 0344 499 1000, or indeed, as I say, text 87222. You can, of course, leave us a voice note, 0344 499 1000 on WhatsApp in that regard. Let's go back to that, the Keir Starmer thing, Duncan, because he famously in the summer last year was abhorrent, in my opinion, by very lazily and with political intent labelling those peaceful protesters, those that were outraged by what happened in Southport. And again, let's not put too fine a point on it. Not only were 3 children murdered, but also many injured, but there was seen to be, as is now I think proven, a cover-up insofar as who that individual was and the motive. So Keir Starmer's reaction to that, rather than dealing with that issue head-on, rather than, of course, dealing with the concerns that people in Britain have, was to label everyone that protests as you say, far-right. But this time, so far, as we go into the summer, and look, let's hope there are not summer riots, but I think the recipe has been laid out for such, I'm afraid to say. Keir Starmer has been notable by his absence. Now, I'm not sure whether we should be happy about that, or that certainly he has a responsibility as Prime Minister to try and calm the nation.
Of course.
But the problem is, Duncan, what we know he will say, if he stands at the lectern at Downing Street tomorrow morning, we know he's going to utter those words far right again, don't we?
Because he doesn't know what else to say, and this is a far bigger issue.
But this is his fault. I mean, not just the immigration problem, but I would contend that by lighting the touch paper as he did in the summer, he has now given an excuse to the media and the far left to act in such a way as to label all legitimate protesters as far right.
Yeah, he's not a leader, and any leader worth their salt would actually acknowledge the concerns that people have right across the United Kingdom at the moment regarding what's happening. He won't do that because politically he's always been very supportive of what he seems to believe are genuine asylum seekers. I think viewers and listeners to Talk and you and I would agree that they are economic migrants at best, right?
Yep.
So that's what
the
they are.
vast majority, even though we actually allow nearly 60% of them to stay.
So you've got his background and his natural bias towards, well, we need to support these people. But he's not a leader, Russell, and any leader would actually address a nation and go, look, I get this, right? I get what these concerns are about. We're trying to do X, Y and Z, and maybe a little bit later on we can get on to whether or not X, Y and Z will make any difference at all, because there's some new laws that are coming out to try and, well, what's the is it smash the gangs? I don't know what it is these days.
No, stop the gangs advertising.
Yeah. Because that's going to work.
It's almost as pathetic, actually, as the Yvette Cooper announcement last week. I mean, she really is out of her depth, isn't she, Yvette Cooper? Last week it was, we're not going to allow anyone in a boat if there are more than 80 of them, because then we're going to criminalise the person that has their hand on the tiller, so to speak. I mean, as if that's going to make any difference at all. It's a bit like trying to prosecute the getaway driver for doing 35.
It's a good analogy, exactly.
I mean, how pathetic, talk about out of touch as politicians. Come on, I know you're sitting there in your Westminster bubble, all of you, but for goodness sake, start to see the real world as it is, and therefore you might actually come up with solutions. And let's be clear, and I think it's been said 973,000 times on this channel so far, the way to stop this problem is not only to provide disincentive and obstacles to people coming here illegally, but it's simply to take away the incentives. If we were to take away the free hotels and the driving lessons, the trampoline lessons, and the 46 quid a week, and the free NHS, and the free dentistry, and all the other things that migrants get, asylum seekers get, that we don't get, if all of a sudden you were to do what Australia did under Tony Abbott a few years ago and say, you get nothing. If you come here, A, you will be deported immediately because you're illegal, and secondly, you will not end up in the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf with a 42-inch flat-screen plasma.
And possibly rolling a spliff.
Yes, or performing acts for OnlyFans, or gambling on scratch cards paid for by the 46 quid that we've just given you. I mean, is it any wonder that we are rising up as a population and saying, do you know what, peacefully, I'm not having this anymore?
No, people are fed up. And going back to where this is going wrong massively for this government, it's all about politics, because they criticise the Conservative Party policy, or Rwanda policy, if you like. The idea that if you rock up here illegally on a boat, you're going to be processed in Rwanda, and most people will go, I don't want that, so I'm not going to go to the United Kingdom. Right? Labour had always criticised that. In their first few weeks of getting into government, they scrapped it. OK? You need a deterrent. This is all about demand and supply. OK? The supply would stop in terms of services to get people.
Why did they stop it? They stopped it not because it actually might have some practical use. Bearing in mind it hadn't even kicked in. They stopped it purely on political grounds because it was a Conservative policy.
Exactly that. So they got rid of any deterrent that exists. If you had a good deterrent, you wouldn't have the demand that currently exists for people to cross the channel in a boat to come to this country.
And look what Greece have done. I don't know if you've seen that over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now, Greece, of course, are almost ground zero when it comes to migrants coming into Europe from the likes of Afghanistan, Syria and so on. And bearing in mind, these boat migrants, these illegals, are not just from Afghanistan and Syria, where you could argue, the climate there, and so I don't want to get onto climate in anticipation of Jim Bale, but I mean the structure there in terms of unrest and regime, is not so favourable. But people are coming over from Vietnam, they're coming from India, they're coming from other places that are not war-torn. So the notion that these people are actually refugees is absolute fantasy, frankly. Let's go back to the solution here, because Yvette Cooper's got it nailed, I think it's fair to say. So quite apart from stopping people being in a boat if there's 80 people in it already, pathetic as that is, she now suggests, well, two things, actually, overnight. Wait for this, everybody. A major law change to criminalise small boat smuggler adverts. So in other words, we're laughing, right?
We are laughing.
This is actually a thing.
It's just like you hold your head in your hands in utter despair. It's like, which bit do you not get here?
This is not
going to work.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is not April the 1st. This is Yvette Cooper's solution, and I'd say that with big inverted commas. She's going to deter the gangs, not smash them, because I think we've established over the last 12 months that's definitely not happening. I think they did arrest a Lilo salesman on the shores of Calais about 6 months ago, I think. Yeah, something like that. Or a guy that had a canoe in a shed that was loosely linked to someone that might know someone that was a migrant smuggler. But no, Yvette Cooper's answer is that she's going to fine and imprison people that are gangs of migrant smugglers that advertise their wares and their services on social media channels. So in other words, if a gang decides to put an advert, as they often do, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook or whatever, that shows that they can convey you at £2,000 or £4,000, 2 for the price of 1, extra legroom seats, maybe a buffet service halfway across the channel. I mean, I kid you not, those things are available. You can actually upgrade as a migrant across the channel to a better service, believe it or not. So what Yvette Cooper is saying is that she's going to track down the people that pay for those adverts, those gangs, and she's going to wag her finger at them and tell them off, and might fine them and might imprison them. Now, Duncan, I wonder where she thinks she's going to find those gangs. I mean, they're not sitting in a call centre in Milton Keynes, are they?
No, it's just so depressing.
I mean, they're already in Turkey, Syria, Afghanistan, France, wherever else. We have no jurisdiction in legal terms over them whatsoever. So what is she on about?
Well, she's on about getting a headline that some people might read and think, oh, look, Labour are taking this seriously. But you scratch the surface, you dig below, and you find out it's not worth the paper it's written on. And if you're going to be kind to Yvette Cooper, which is not something I would really normally be in the market for.
I'm not sure she's worthy of that.
Well, let's go through the process. So they identify the people who've got these adverts on TikTok, right? They somehow managed to nick them. What are they going to do with them? We don't have prison spaces in this country. I mean, it doesn't work. This idea simply does not work.
Well, it doesn't, and nor does the second part of the solution.
Go on.
Which isn't a solution at all, but it's being heralded as such, which is Yvette Cooper's fast-track asylum plan.
Oh, yeah.
So this is in the Times today, everybody. You'll be reassured by this, I'm sure, that the backlog of asylum seekers, which I think sits at about 80,000 people. So these are the people that have come over the last year or two. And, of course, because 900 people a day are arriving in some instances, guess what? The hapless Home Office cannot process them quick enough. But no, Yvette Cooper says, don't worry about that. That backlog, we are with one foul swoop going to get rid of it. So basically, I think what we know is going to happen here, Duncan, this is going to be an amnesty, isn't it?
I think it is. And also, what you've got to factor into this is the Home Office and the civil servants who work within it are remarkably sympathetic.
And left.
And left of centre politically and unionised, and their default setting will not be, oh, well, let's fast-track people to go back to their country of origin. It won't be.
And then also we see in The Sun this morning, I'm going to be talking about this with Ryan Sabey from The Sun later on. This was the audacity, while these protests were ongoing yesterday, these concerned patriotic Britons protesting locally with regard to these migrant hotels having sprung up, again with no notice, often councils and local MPs actually remonstrating against these. I mean, certainly that's been the case in Epping, where you've got local MPs and the council voting for these things to be closed, but of course they're at the behest of the Home Office. We saw a picture of migrants at the windows of hotels. I think one in particular was the Britannia Hotel, but also the hotel in the Barbican, blowing kisses at protesters and filming protesters from their cosy hotel window. Wow.
It's antagonistic.
It's salt in the wounds, isn't it?
It is. And just going back to the point you made a few moments ago, Russell, it is ludicrous that the Home Office does not inform local councils or councillors or the local MP about what's going on. And for me, that feeds into part of this problem is that people feel like they're being taken for mugs.
But they are.
Right. And the information is being withheld. So therefore, that gets us into the territory of cover-up. And it just makes the situation a lot worse.
And there's also, I think we've got some footage of this. This again, I know we know this, right, but this is evidence of the fact that the government and the authorities know that this is a problem and that they're the wrong side of history. Britannia Hotel, of course, which has been protested outside in Canary Wharf for the last 3 or 4 days, footage of police officers 2 or 3 days ago saying, no, there's no migrants here. This is not a migrant hotel. But as we can see, for those that are watching on YouTube, the footage here of 2 nights ago at about 1 a.m, a bus pulls up full of migrants and they are sneaked into that hotel overnight. Well, if this isn't an issue, if all refugees should be welcome and these people are not unwelcome or in some respects, not all, but a danger or a threat, why do the authorities have to bust them in at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Exactly, but also leading into that, I remember when various media organisations, including Talk, got a whiff of this, calls were put into the Home Office initially, not just the police, but the Home Office, and they were like, no, we don't have any current plans, which is the typical comms response when you want to fudge stuff. For you just want to get some breathing space. You think, my God, they're onto us, we're going to have to tell them something, there are no current plans. But of course, in half an hour's time, there might be a plan. So therefore, legitimately, you can say, well, when we spoke, there are no current plans. It just feeds into this narrative that people aren't being told the truth and there's a cover-up. And it just makes these protests more and more likely for these protests to get bigger. And just adding on to this, apart from the sense of we're not being told what is going on, I think it gets us into the British sense of fair play. This has always been my view on this. As a nation, we are fair and tolerant, all right? As a nation, we have a great track record of helping out the underdog. But when people start taking the mick, then the people of this country go, well, hang on a second. So hang on, let's look at this. You come to this country illegally and you're getting access, as you mentioned earlier, Russell, to dentistry services, NHS services that you and I have to queue up for and other people listening and watching Talk have to queue up for. People just go, that is just not right. You're being rewarded for coming here illegally.
I think that those of a overtly liberal persuasion, those on the left of the left, might say that listening to this, yeah, you two just sound like a load of racists, basically,
really?
Because you don't like migrants and you don't like. I know. Bearing in mind, I'm married to a migrant. My wife is Eastern European. She's from Slovakia. But guess what? She came here legitimately.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
She didn't sneak in. She didn't throw her passport over the side of the passport gate as she got off her Ryanair flight. She came here legitimately and has paid into the system ever since, and has certainly been a contributor, as many people that have come here over the last 20 or 30 years have done so legitimately. So that is not the issue. The issue that we have, and actually a lot of migrants, a lot of first-generation migrants from various parts of the world have, is that these people not only are coming here illegally, they're coming here with their hands out, they are coming here under false pretences and being given an infinite amount of benefits. So when I say benefits, I don't just mean cash, I mean the whole NHS, hotel thing, local authorities spending, was it Nottinghamshire County Council in the last 12 months has spent £45,000 on McDonald's for migrants, I kid you not, and Domino's and so on and so on. It is the illegitimacy of those people coming here that are, let's just not put too fine a point on it, these people, the majority, I would say 90% of these people coming here now, particularly on boats, are gaming the system. Am I wrong? I mean, by the way, if you think I am, please call. If you want to do the whole all refugees are welcome thing, well, ring up 0344 499 1000. Be prepared for my first question, which is how many have you got in your spare room? Or text us 87222. We're going to go to a break. Duncan is going to be with me for another hour or so. We're going to carry on with this and many other things, but I'll be back after this. I'm Russell Quirk. I'm in for Alex Phillips. This is Talk Breakfast.
These fighting age males and sexually active males, might I add, are coming over to our country having no idea of either our laws or our culture.
And it must be, like, bizarre for them, because I get it, because they must see the way that we dress and the way that we women have a voice, and it must be bizarre for them. But the point is that enough is enough now.
Darling, I am making no excuses for these people. No.
He could have kicked him in the body, kicking somebody in the head. If I was a senior detective investigating that, I think the problem is you're handing victim cards to that person. From them becoming the
in the heat of the moment.
The heat of the moment, and we've all been. I've been there with a red mist. If you're involved in violence like that, where people suddenly attack you, two of the colleagues have been taken out, and you're suddenly on your own. The red mist descends, and you're sort of fighting for your life. So it is very hard to criticise when that has happened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, welcome back to Talk Breakfast. I'm Russell Quirk. I'm still here with Duncan Barks. And yes, we are going to continue to talk about the migrant crisis. So we spent the last half an hour talking about the migrant crisis as it's manifesting itself across migrant hotels in various cities across the country and the public response to that. Guess what? They don't like it. They don't like tens of thousands of fake asylum seekers being deposited in their towns and cities, and then only to see many of them charged, many of them convicted of offences. And just to be clear, what I was saying earlier on, just as a little barometer for you, so that we all know where we stand. The Barbican, one of the Barbican hotels that has 40 migrants within it, over the last 3 years, those 40 migrants have been charged with a total of 91 offences. The issues around Epping that started this whole scenario 3 or 4 weeks ago, of course, started because one of the occupants of that migrant hotel has been charged, not found guilty yet, of course no trial as yet, so innocent till proven guilty, but has been charged with not one, not two, but 3 sexual offence counts. And as we just rehearsed over the last 15 or 20 minutes, 2 Afghan asylum seekers, 23 years old, in Nuneaton, have also been charged, again, not found guilty, not sentenced yet, not charged, charged but not convicted, of raping, an alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl. Funnily enough, you lot don't like that very much, and nor should you. Should you protest? Yes, you damn well should, because if we don't protest peacefully, of course, and I'm not suggesting anything more than that, then this hapless, hopeless, cloth-eared, useless government of ours will not do anything about it, because they are so caught up in their politics, their ideology, and their ridiculous out-of-touch Westminster bubble that they frankly otherwise don't care what you think. Let's talk about this, Duncan, as well. This is, I'm sorry to say, another thing that at 6:30 on a Sunday morning our wonderful listeners and watchers are going to be spitting feathers at, I'm afraid. So look, I hope you've had your first coffee of the day, everybody, but listen to this. This is in The Sun. This is a story about Hashim Abidi. Now, Hashim Abidi is the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber. Abidi was sentenced to 55 years in prison for helping his suicide bomber brother Salman plan the 2017 Arena attack. This is also the individual that in April stabbed and scalded with hot water 3 prison officers. The prison's response, so obviously he's at HMP Belmarsh, I believe, in South East London. The prison response to that has been to reward him, I have to say, with an upgrade in his conditions. He's got his Freeview television back, and he also now has more cash for phone credit, and he's allowed to use the gym again. Oh. Now, Duncan, the last time I looked, prison was supposed to be about punishment. It's not anymore, is it? It's
well, there are some people who believe it should be about rehabilitation, but I share...
How can you rehabilitate someone like Abidi?
I take a very different view. I think I have a great deal of sympathy with the officers here who have seen their colleagues almost lose their lives as a result of what this man did, stabbing one person 5 times, chucking scalding water over people as well. But I think there's a bigger issue here. If you have someone who clearly has an ideology that he believes in and has followed and has assisted in the death of innocent people in this country, why would you allow them to mix with other prisoners? I mean, that's the danger, isn't it? You don't want him potentially radicalising other people. So I'm quite hard line on this, and I'd like to think most of our viewers and listeners would be as well. He shouldn't be mixing with other prisoners. He should be in solitary confinement, and that would act as a deterrent, hopefully, to other people who might be of a similar mindset, thinking, well, I might go and do something. If they go to prison, there's no TV, there's no, you know, having money to spend on Mars bars. It's unpleasant, and you're on your own for 24 hours a day, and that is the punishment.
Yeah, and in sharp contrast, of course, to Lucy Connolly, that has been denied all sorts of privileges and appeals and visiting rights and so on for simply sending a tweet that was ill-advised.
Which she deleted.
Yeah, and look, also, you know, and I'm going to mention the name Tommy Robinson. And the reason I'm going to do that is because of the disparity in terms of the way that he was dealt with in prison, in solitary confinement, no privileges whatsoever. And yes, he was found guilty of contempt of court. He was guilty, of course, but effectively, you know, he simply showed a video. The difference, not just in two-tier policing and two-tier justice in this country, but two-tier prisons, insofar as how people are dealt with. I mean, again, it's purely political. I suspect that there has been some diktat from above to make sure that this individual is not seen to be treated, inverted commas, and these are big inverted commas, too harshly. But I guess there's also probably an argument here that this is simply, is this the prison governor at HMP Belmarsh, whoever it is, deciding that, well, actually, if we treat even the worst of criminals in this prison with kid gloves, they might not rebel and kick off quite so much. Yeah, it's for a quiet life.
I think there's something in that. I mean, you can read reports elsewhere. It's well documented from whistleblowers within the prison service who have remained anonymous because they don't want to lose their jobs, about how in certain prisons around the UK there is a fear that Muslim gangs have taken control of certain wings. I mean, that's documented. That is out there. So you also have to have a degree of sympathy with the prison governor. If you've got a volatile population in your prison who might kick off, you might actually go, well, it doesn't make a great headline, but you know what, it's a lot easier just to let someone watch Freeview because it keeps them just a little bit more contained. It's not the country I want to live in, but that's what it looks like.
But to your point, Duncan, you're not going to keep an ideologue contained. No. Because if you know, Hashim Abidi, or indeed his brother, and many, many others that are in prison that have been radicalised, you're not going to stop their behaviour being that of a terrorist. Whether you allow them to have a PlayStation and a full Sky package or not, they are still going to act in the way that they do because they are terrorists. It's a bit like child molesters, a bit like paedophiles, isn't it? We think they can be rehabilitated. I'm afraid when it comes to ideology, whether it's of, you know, abusing children, or whether it's of an ideology related to religion, which happens to generally be, when it comes to violence, I'm afraid, Islam. That's just a fact. It's not something that can be rehabilitated out of someone, is it? Let's be honest.
No, it's an ideology. And we have attempts at trying to tackle ideologies. We have the Prevent programme in this country, which...
Well, that's really worked.
Exactly. We know hasn't been remarkably effective at all. Yeah. So, you know, you're right. If someone has got a deeply held belief, an ideology that they subscribe to, and you are right, in most cases it comes down to religion, and look at the number of terror attacks that have happened in this country, common denominator?
Islam.
So
you don't see radical Hindus running up London Bridge with knives, do you? No. Or Buddhists blowing buses up, I don't think.
And it's the unspoken thing. We're not supposed to have these conversations because it might be divisive. But if you don't acknowledge the clear facts and the evidence that exist, then you're an idiot.
But Duncan, that takes us nicely back to the point that you made about this Nuneaton, the 2 Afghan asylum seekers, where it seems that Warwickshire police, it is alleged, covered up those crimes again. And where have we heard this before? We don't want to incite community unrest. I think that's where we ended up, or as a consequence of that philosophy, is where we've ended up with regard to the grooming gang scandal. The fact that we didn't want to incite racial hatred or community unrest allowed children to be raped for another 20 or 30 years. When will our authorities learn from their copious mistakes, I wonder?
I don't think they ever will. to be honest with you, because I think
the wrong people in authority.
Yeah, I think it's so deeply embedded, and I think particularly in the public sector, from civil servants to people who work in local councils to even the police. I was going to say force, but it's now a service in many ways, isn't it? Yeah. Where you go on these training courses about diversity and understanding and trying to treat everyone in a fair way. But what a lot of people do is they go too far in the opposite direction.
But things are worse as a consequence of that.
Exactly. And I come back to the point I made earlier. This stuff is not hard. If you hold back information from law-abiding taxpayers in this country, the majority of us, about crimes that are taking place, further down the line is going to come back and bite you on the backside, because people will just go, why didn't you tell us? And that then gets us into the whole area where people become even more suspicious of government and authorities, and it creates a far bigger problem.
And all of this takes us to where we are in the eyes of the rest of the world. I just want to show everybody something. This is an advert from a company called Coinbase, who are a US-based crypto platform. They have put together actually a very tongue-in-cheek advert that, how can I put this, rinses Great Britain. It takes the mickey out of us. Have a little watch of this. This is how the rest of the world sees great, or what was once Great Britain.
We ain't got no troubles, no reason to complain. 'Cause here in Great Old Britain, we just love it when it rains.
Morning.
We're cosy here at home, even though it's not our own. But wait a few more years and who can say? Everything is just fine. Everything is grand. Your life can get no better when you're living by the letter in this pleasant land. Everything is just fine. Everything is great. The streets can't get no cleaner, nor the rat meat any leaner. No, life is just first rate.
Everything is just fine.
These fish fingers are a steal.
Prices up a smidge.
Just £100 a meal.
Empty purse, but hey, could be worse if there was nothing in the fridge.
I'm laughing away here because I think that's a brilliant parody. Duncan looks horrified.
I am. I'm depressed after watching that. Well, that's not my country.
Well, it is.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Well, it is. Fish fingers are £100. We're probably not that far away from that, are we?
True.
And you know, the world is falling in on us, or the ceiling is certainly falling in on us, and this is what other countries think about.
So, Russell, was that from America? Was that an American?
Coinbase are an American crypto platform, so they're using us as a parody. They're poking a stick at us in order to sell crypto. I mean, honestly, whatever happened to Great Britain? I mean, we're not Great Britain anymore.
Well,
we're a version.
I'll tell you what's happened. We're not allowed to call ourselves Great Britain, and we haven't done for the last 20 years. And if you'll permit me to just go off on one ever so slightly, the roots of this go back to the Blair government, right? Where all of a sudden you had this mindset come in under New Labour, which a lot of people voted for because they thought, well, you know, this is going to be a bit different, and it's surely going to be better than the Conservative governments of Thatcher and Major. And slowly, what Tony Blair did, very cleverly, he basically rewired this country. So it gets us back to the conversation we had a few moments ago about the public sector and stuff. The idea that you might teach certain things in school about Britain and the part it played in World War II. Oh, we can't do that. That might upset Germany, for example.
Well, there's a few statues around that might be a bit offensive.
Or it might glorify war, so we shouldn't celebrate these great war heroes. So let's not do that. And it's examples like that that have been allowed to continue since the New Labour administration. And actually, we're going to talk
the previous
politics.
Lot, who were not real Conservatives at all.
I was going to say, when the Conservatives had their time in power, there's a lot of mistakes they made. They could have unpicked a lot of this, and they didn't. Because their party... The bottom line is that Conservative Party and the Conservative Party that exists now in its current form, it is divided, right? You know, there's people in there who should be in the Lib Dems.
And actually, a big part of the problem, in my view, is the civil service, the activist civil service, the civil service that without mandate, without being elected, effectively seek to run the country despite what our politicians want. And we saw that with the likes of Suella Braverman, Priti Patel and so on, who wanted, they say, to do something about immigration was stopped by the civil service. In fact, interestingly, Zia Youssef, the former chairman of Reform, yesterday tweeted something about the civil service because Angela Rayner has said in the future all civil service interns and new recruits will be working class, whatever the hell that means. I mean, what is working class these days? And Zia Youssef said, well, actually, don't worry about that. He said, because we're going to fire them all. And of course, there'd be much uproar about that. But I think the sentiment of firing a few civil servants is absolutely right, particularly the renegades, particularly the ones that decide that they're going to work from home no matter what. Talking of civil service, I've got to bring you this as well. Also in the papers today, it's revealed that Robert Jenrick, who in fairness now, maybe not 2 or 3 years ago, has been revealed to have been blocked by the Home Office doing something. Let's talk about it after the break, but this is infuriating, almost as much as all the other stuff we've been talking about this morning is infuriating. Let's take a break. I'll be back in a couple of minutes' time.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, welcome back. It is 6:46 this Sunday morning. Thanks for being with us. Do join in, as many people are doing already. 0344 499 1000 is the number, or do what lots and lots of people have already done, even though it is only 6:45 on a Sunday morning, and that's to text us on 87222 plus the word Talk. I'm still joined by Duncan Barks, and we're having a whale of a time, really, chatting about all that is wrong with migration in this country, and it sounds like we're enjoying it. I mean, I'm not, because I genuinely lament the state of our country. And of course, it's not all about the problems associated with migration, but, well, there's certainly a big part of that. Let's talk about Robert Jenrick in that regard. So Robert Jenrick, who is definitely angling to be the next leader of the Conservative Party and potential Prime Minister. I think that's obvious. I think he is rather stepped up, certainly in terms of his right-wing credentials over the last 2 or 3 years. I don't remember him being this right-wing.
He's had quite a conversion.
He has. He has. And I wonder why that would be.
Yeah.
So he's almost, in some respects, out-reforming reform when it comes to some of the things that he's been saying. And he's been very good. I don't know who his social media agency is. I presume that he has one, or an advisor doing his social media, but it's very good.
He's got a young lad who does it.
Yeah, well,
one of his staffers.
It's impressive in terms of it hitting home. Yeah. And actually resonating, I think, with the public in terms of the stuff that matters. Yeah. You know, the thing that he did where he was at different rail and tube stations challenging people for bashing through the barriers and not paying and so on. He's done lots and lots and lots of similar things. Some would say stunts, but actually I would argue that they're things that should matter. And he is certainly doing something on the ground to highlight some of these issues. But he also, some time ago, apparently, when he raised the problem of small boats and the fact that people from Islamic State, he says, were waltzing right into Britain across the Channel, it seems that Sir Matthew Rycroft, who was the department's then permanent secretary, wrote to Robert Jenrick to tell them that the information that he was imparting to the public should not have been made public, and warned him against any further disclosure of sensitive information. Now, there's two things here. I mean, obviously, he was a precursor, Robert Jenrick, it seems, to everything we now know is true and factual in terms of the fact that we have definitely had people here from Iran and other parts of the Middle East that have malintent by way of terrorism, members of Islamic State, even people with AK-47s tattooed onto their cheeks.
Yeah.
So I think Robert Jenrick was certainly right. But my big question to you, Duncan, and I'm saying it as if you're responsible for this,
No,
of course, my friend, you're not.
It's not me.
Is who the hell does Sir Matthew Rycroft, who is an unelected civil servant, think he is, telling an elected MP and a minister at the time, or a shadow minister, what he can and can't say? How dare he?
Well, I agree, but this is just another example of the civil service being politicised, right? That's what's going on here. It's a form of activism. Apparently, according to this story in the Sunday Telegraph, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, knew that this gentleman, Sir Matthew Rycroft, was issuing the reprimand to Robert Jenrick, which then just gets you back into the area of it being overtly politicised. This is exactly what an opposition MP should be doing.
Yep.
Should be holding the government to account. You can't start picking and choosing and saying, well, actually, no, you can't do that because it might cause this kind of problem or whatever. Jenrick was right to do it, and Rycroft is the person who should be actually reprimanded for actually taking this course of action.
Well, Sir Matthew should be one of those people that
we shouldn't know who he
should
is.
Be fired. I mean, Sir Matthew went even. I don't even want to call him Sir. How on earth has he become a Sir when he's clearly acting against the best interests of this country? I'm talking about you, Matthew Rycroft. Matthew Rycroft then went on apparently to play the Official Secrets Act card. I mean, seriously, again, because this individual, this permanent secretary in the Home Office, clearly has an agenda, again, to suppress, to cover up, to not tell the truth, and not to want MPs and shadow members of the or members of the shadow cabinet to say what's really going on. He cites the Ministerial Code and the Official Secrets Act as reasons why Robert Jenrick should not blab further. They're my words, actually, not his. And Sir Matthew also apparently confirmed that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, was personally aware that he was going to issue the reprimand to Robert Jenrick. So Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, complicit in trying to silence a member of His Majesty's Parliament raising legitimate concerns about the fact that terrorists are walking into Britain, or rather sailing into Britain, on small boats. I mean, no wonder we're in the mess we're in.
Well, it's not just that. This is another example of something else that we talked about earlier, the idea that this shouldn't be shared with the public, let's keep it quiet, and they're trying to use the Official Secrets Act, and you've got this civil servant, the most senior civil servant in the country, trying to reprimand an opposition MP. You've got that going on one level, and we go back to the story that's in the Mail on Sunday today about these 2 asylum seekers who have been charged with rape, so we have to be careful what we say.
Not convicted, just
not
charged.
Convicted. They deny the allegations of a 12-year-old girl, and the local police going to councillors, don't tell anyone about their background. There's a theme developing here, and I come back to the point that I made earlier. If you do not talk about this, if you keep it quiet, if you try and cover it up, it comes back in a different way, in a lot more sinister way.
Well, it is, and that's why we're getting protests outside migrant hotels. Right, we need to take another break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Kemi Badenoch and a couple of things in her regard. One is that she has had a go at Rachel Reeves, thank goodness. I mean, that is your job, Kemi Badenoch, and says that she's making bigger mistakes than Liz Truss. Well, I'm not sure Liz Truss made that many, actually, but we'll talk about that in a second. And we're also going to be looking at the latest polls with regard to the effect that Jeremy Corbyn's new party has had on them, a split in the left for sure. This is Talk Breakfast, back after this.
one of nature's noblemen there, absolutely breaking, smashing a woman in the face.
Two women.
Two women, but the image of...
Oh, yeah, the woman with the poor girl with the blood all over her face. Yeah.
So that's so important. We see that. And even though this woman has seen that, even though Yvette Cooper, even though all of these people in positions of power have seen this awful footage, they still side with the brute who beats a woman.
He could have kicked him in the body, kicking somebody in the head. If I was a senior detective investigating that, I think the problem is you're handing victim cards to that person. From them becoming the...
In the heat of the moment?
The heat of the moment. And I've been there with a red mist. If you're involved in violence like that, where people suddenly attack you, two of the colleagues have been taken out, and you're suddenly on your own, the red mist descends and you're sort of fighting for your life. So it is very hard to criticise when that has happened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Russell Quirk in for Alex Phillips. This is Talk Breakfast. Got 5 minutes until we get to the 7 a.m. news. Thanks for joining me. 0344 499 1000, by the way, if you really want to get involved, or indeed text 87222 plus the word talk with your view, your opinion, whether you agree, whether you disagree with anything that Duncan or I are saying. Let's talk about Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Jezza.
Let's talk about Jeremy Corbyn. Now, I love Jeremy Corbyn at the moment. And I tell you why, is because he's splitting the left vote. There's a poll out from GB Politics, actually on GB Politics via BMG Research, which shows that he's already, whatever he's going to call it, by the way, I think there's still some uncertainty with Zara Sultana in terms of what they're going to call it.
At the moment,
well, she says it's not going to be that, but he says it is.
Name,
and they want to govern together, this party. It's not going very well already, is it? Anyway, they are polling at 6%. Now, I've actually seen another poll in the last few days that puts them much, much higher. But look, we need this to settle, because obviously they're only a couple of weeks into that announcement. They say they've signed up, is it now 500,000 members? But of course, they're not doing what Reform do, which is to take money from people in exchange for that. So I think, you know, we could all do that. I mean, you or I could just sign up just to see what comms come out of that party. So, but they are certainly getting some traction. They are obviously of a very left-wing persuasion. I think they would be unashamedly admitting that that is the case. But of course, what it's done is to affect Labour. Shock horror.
It has. So I've written a piece for the Express newspaper about this, which goes online this afternoon at 5, and will be in the paper tomorrow, because I do a political commentator slot for them.
Nicely trailed.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me do so. The essence of it is Farage owes Corbyn a pint, right? Because, as we're seeing with these figures here, Jeremy Corbyn's new party will split the Labour vote and will put the Reform lead further higher than the current Labour statistics.
Well, you're not going to lose many Reform votes to Jeremy Corbyn, are you?
No. So he's going to take from Labour and maybe a little bit from the Greens. So what this has done is Corbyn's new party will speed up, I believe, the journey of Nigel Farage, given the current polling that we have and the usual caveats that it's 3 or 4 years to another election, speed up the process of Farage in Downing Street.
There's already been some defections, of course. There have been a number of Labour councillors over the last day or two that have defected to Corbyn and Sultana. Why don't they just call it that? Corbyn and Sultana. It sounds like a rubbish law firm.
I was going to say that, some dodgy solicitors. I mean, Zara Sultana has said on the record that this will be a true socialist party, right? And
well, even more than Keir Starmer's. Wow.
Yeah, and you're going to see some disenfranchised Labour supporters, particularly over the welfare reforms that they tried to get through and failed. You know, they will support Corbyn's outfit, as will people who are not happy with how Starmer is dealing with Israel-Gaza.
We're going to say a big pro-Palestine push as well. So I tell you where I am on this. I think this is wonderful news, because I think we're all done with, I think, what many of us would call the uni party. This I nearly said something inappropriate then, but this this rather lousy show, you know what I was going to say now, that is the Conservatives and Labour, I think, since Blair, as you happened to mention him, Duncan, earlier on. And this kind of this approach of no belief, no vision, no ideology, absolute populism, swaying left and right on policy and reaction like a wind vane. That's what we've seen really from Labour and the Conservatives over the last 20 or 30 years, I think. And actually, in some respects, when it comes to immigration, criminality and so on, and tax, not much to choose between them. So what we now end up with is what I think is good old-fashioned left versus right politics, the stuff that I grew up with when I was a student in Basildon arguing with my history teacher. I was on the right, fun enough, he was on the left. I think we now get back to, yes, Farage versus Corbyn, right versus left, you know, proper socialism versus right-wing conservatism. Anyway, look, we're going to go to the news now. Let me know if you think that you agree. Back after the news.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet, and it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 7 o'clock on this fine Sunday morning. Certainly down here in the southeast, London, where we are at Talk Towers, the weather's going to be okay today, apparently. I hope so, because I'm off to a car event in Bicester after this. Anyone that's going to Megaphonics, I'll see you there. Let's go through the front pages, shall we? Let's do that so that everybody else doesn't have to, so to speak, Duncan. Front page of the Sunday Express fears that Hamas may unleash terror in the UK. This is a report here from Michael Knowles that says activists are ready to radicalise Britons by exploiting growing sympathy for the plight of Gaza. Well, I guess it would be pretty easy, I'm afraid, for Hamas to provoke such on the basis that we don't really know who's here. And as we've already rehearsed, and where Robert Jenrick tried to step in, we have people here anonymously that have come here on boats that may well and probably are terrorists. We just don't know it because we don't know their identities.
Exactly that. So if you have people in this country who have a different ideology or perhaps have become radicalised, they will potentially have a great deal of sympathy, if not support, for Hamas. and if there is a view that Britain is perhaps too supportive of Israel, then I think we might see those people somehow trying to damage this country.
Just to mix things up a little bit, because we have spent the last hour on migrants, let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, shall we? She's been quizzed about what she knows about Epstein and the so-called Epstein files, and indeed, obviously, what everybody wants to know is who is in those so-called files, who may have been a frequent island visitor or indeed a visitor to his New York apartment, where it seems, as we know now, all sorts of nefarious things took place. It looks like she's putting 3 Brits in the frame. Now, I guess the trade-off for her is that she's hoping to be released as a consequence of cooperating. Do we trust her testimony, though, Duncan?
I just don't know.
It's pretty easy to say, well, it was XYZ celebrity stroke ex-politician prime minister, because she feels that that is of sufficient revelation to be meaty enough to get her sentence.
I think she wants to get out of Nick. She has been moved into a lower security facility as well in the last week or so. She was interviewed extensively by government lawyers. I think if you're in her situation, you're probably going to tell them what you think they might want to hear in order to speed up your release. I mean, Trump's got the ability to pardon her. He's not said that he would, but he has made it clear that he has the ability to do that.
And that would be a very bad look politically, wouldn't it?
Well, he's losing a lot of political capital over this because, of course, he campaigned on saying, I'll publish the Epstein papers and the Epstein files, and it's not happened, and people are going, well, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, indeed, and that is a question that needs to be answered. Front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Badenoch, who I mentioned earlier on, she says that Labour has not learnt from Truss's mistakes. Now, Kemi, I have to say, I think this is rather unfair of you to be pointing the finger at Liz Truss. Now, Liz Truss, of course, is blamed constantly for the budget of late 2022, her and Kwasi Kwarteng, and the effect it then had on the economy, and in particular, swap rates, mortgage rates, and so on. But I think most of us with half a brain realised that Truss was largely set up in that scenario, both by civil servants, probably her own party, actually, those that didn't want her to be Prime Minister, because, of course, she won the leadership election only 40 or so days previous to that. But Badenoch now saying that, of course, Labour hasn't learnt from those mistakes, but putting aside the Truss conduct for a second, she's having a go at Rachel Reeves here, which, as I said just now, absolutely she should. Rachel Reeves is the worst Chancellor, in my opinion, since Dennis Healey of the 1970s. Dennis Healey that literally had to go on his knees, crawling to the door of the International Monetary Federation, at the IMF, to ask for a bailout. We are heading that way.
It does seem like that. I mean, I think she has been the appalling Chancellor. I know you know people in the world of business. I've got friends who have small businesses, someone who runs some pubs in West Sussex. And since that budget, when various measures were announced, including the minimum wage going up, the employers' national insurance contributions going up as well, and also away from the finances, Angela Rayner's Employment Rights Bill coming in.
Yeah, which hasn't even kicked in yet, probably.
It hasn't kicked in yet, still going through, I think it was going through the House of Lords when Parliament was last sitting. So it's problematic, and all of this is impacting on business. And she is an appalling Chancellor. And we also know the last month's borrowing figures came in at 20.7 billion quid, the second highest level on record after June 2020, which was big because, of course, we were funding furlough payments off the back of the pandemic. And the other fact that I always lob into these conversations is, as a nation, we are paying £105 billion a year to service our debt
just in interest. In interest. And we're now borrowing more money just to pay the interest off. And if you did that at home with your credit cards, you would soon end up in very, very big doo-doo.
I've got a really big fear, and you mentioned a bailout in the 70s from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I think if we continue at this pace, our country will be bankrupt.
No, we will be. And the problem is that because of ideology, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, etc., seem hell-bent on continuing down the same wobbly path. And that is now manifesting itself, not just in terms of increased borrowing, but we've seen GDP shrinkage. So we are a quarter, as in 3 months, away from recession. We have seen unemployment increase, so 200,000 people have lost their jobs in the last 12 months. Inflation has started to rise again. We have a cocktail of cock-ups, frankly. We were talking about sound bites earlier.
Yeah.
There's one. A cocktail of cock-ups economically, which means that, and on top of that, because of the way that wealth creators and business people are being ostracised, of course, we're going to see, as has been forecast by Henley Partners, I think, 16,000 millionaires leave the country.
Yeah.
We've lost 30 billionaires, apparently.
Yep.
Now, those on the left listening to this will say, well, good, I don't like them because I'm jealous of them, the whole political green-eyed monster thing. But again, you have to understand, if you have an iota of intelligence, that these millionaires and billionaires, they do pay tax, by the way, but they also employ people. They also have businesses that pay corporation tax and VAT and national insurance and so on. And that is why not only are we borrowing more money, Duncan, but of course there is now a tax gap insofar as what the Office of Budget Responsibility in the government forecast we would have coming in through income tax. Each month now, that's something like £4 billion short because all of these wealth creators are being deterred from staying in Britain.
The people running this country are thick, right? You get growth. I'm sorry to be blunt about it. No, I'm not sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Sorry,
You're
not sorry.
completely right.
You get growth from the private sector, from businesses. It's always been the case. So when you start making life harder for the private sector and wealth creators, then that damages your ability to create growth. That's one thing. The other thing is the majority of people in that cabinet, in fact all of them I think, have never run a business. The people in the current Labour cabinet all come from the public sector or have worked in charities, and I'm sure it's very laudable and stuff, but when you work in those particular areas, you're not dealing with your own money, it's other people's money, right? So they've never had, one, that sense of financial responsibility that people who have run businesses have had, you know, about meeting the wage bill at the end of every month. But two, you just do not understand what it's like to run a business because you've never done it. And if you run a country's economy like a business, things start to happen.
Well, in the immortal words of the late, great Margaret Thatcher, my number one hero in life is the adage that the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money.
Yeah, and we're at that point now.
We are exactly there.
Because those of us who pay taxes, we've had enough.
Yep.
You know, we've got a massive tax burden. We see it being frittered away in all kinds of areas, and they can't squeeze us anymore.
Yep, indeed. Well, they're going to try because, of course, we've got another budget coming up in November. I suspect the target will be, again, Middle England, whether it's school fees, whether it's health insurance, whether it's stuff that we want to buy to reward ourselves for hard work, so whether it's a nice holiday or a nice watch, not that you can have a nice watch anymore, particularly if you live in a city, a nice car, etc. All of that, I'm sure, will be taxed. Front page of the Sunday Times, Duncan. Gaza children are to be flown in for NHS treatment. Now, I have to say, it's very difficult to criticise this on the basis that, you know, whichever side those children were on, whether they are Palestinian or whether they are Israeli, of course, if children are injured, we must and should be compassionate. But I guess the question also has to be asked, why is it that the British NHS have to care for up to 300, apparently, according to the Sunday Times, these children? What about other Middle Eastern countries? What about Jordan? What about Egypt? What about, you know, other countries that, of course, have health systems? Why are they not picking up the responsibility?
I know, I think that's a very fair question to ask. I mean, it is so difficult because we're talking about kids, and as you rightly identified, they haven't chosen to, if you like, pick a side or weren't chosen where they were born. I mean, the other piece on the front page of the Sunday Times here talks about each child being brought to the UK will be accompanied by a parent or guardian and siblings if necessary. Relevant biometric and security checks are expected to be carried out by the Home Office before they travel, and sources familiar with the plan said it was expected that some would never return home. Now, that gets us into a slightly different area, doesn't it? I think because we are a fair and kind nation, if a child needs some kind of NHS treatment, you go, well, we'll do our fair share. However, the question you've asked rightly is, what about other countries? What are you doing to do this? But
particularly those that are next door.
When you're next door. But when you come here and have the treatment, when you start reading reports saying, well, some were never expected to return home, you start thinking, well, how does that actually work? And are you going to cap the numbers?
Well, they won't, will they? They will just lose track, no doubt. Front page of the Mail on Sunday. This is a slightly reassuring story. I think we could call this good news, Duncan, I think. The Mail on Sunday. Carry on doctor is the headline. 2/3 of doctors have defied a strike call in what the Daily Mail, the Mail on Sunday, is calling a huge blow to militant unions' bid to wreak hospital havoc. So this is the vast majority of resident doctors have defied strike calls by militant union chiefs determined to wreak havoc in NHS hospitals. Official statistics from health bosses show a huge drop in the numbers who joined last week's 5-day walkout, with 2/3 of medics snubbing the order. Well, thank goodness it's restored my faith in those otherwise greedy doctors.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things here. I mean, first off, the turnout for the ballot was just over 50%, right? So you look at that, the BMA strike action.
Is that the threshold?
Yeah, the threshold is 50%, I think I'm right in saying, but it literally came in at like 53 or 55%. And you just go, well, that clearly is not, you know, there is a sizable chunk of BMA members who are going, I'm not even taking part
in other
this
words,
ballot.
even if a majority of that 50% vote for strike action, which clearly they must have done, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to strike, it means that the majority of people did not vote for strike action.
That's how I interpret it. So you've got that going on. Also, there was a cracking interview that Mike Graham did during the week with someone who was on a picket line representing the BMA.
Well, he asked how much she earned.
And she couldn't go anywhere near it, because that is the Achilles heel, isn't it? Let's talk about what's in your actual pay packet.
And why, as a doctor that's trying to justify your militant position, bearing in mind that junior doctors had 28% over 2 years until recently. Now they want another 29%. I guess, for another holiday home in France, or, you know, for an upgraded Tesla, or whatever you rich doctors drive around.
A second Arga.
Probably in that other country home. Yes, why would you not disclose how much you earn? Because you didn't want to say, well, actually last year I earned £135,000 in the NHS plus all the private work I do.
Exactly. I mean, I urge people to check it out on the YouTube channel, because it is just superb. But the other thing
and no one does it better than Mike Graham.
No one.
That skewering was absolutely
But the other thing about this is public sympathy now is not on the side of the doctors. I mean, there are opinion polls that are out there and you basically strip it down, and people's sentiment is, hang on a second, you had a good old whack when Labour came into government last year, good old increase. And they did that to stop the strikes, which you can argue is a political move because their pledges to get waiting lists down. And you're coming back for more, which is unreasonable in the extent of, you know, the political and economic backdrop. So public sympathy is not on the side of these doctors who want to continue the strike.
Should we lighten the mood?
Go on.
Front page of the Star, which obviously is everybody's favourite paper, Champagne Super Spreader is the headline, but actually their better headline is inside the paper on page 5, which is, what's the story, Morning Lurgy? See what they did there?
Yeah, that's good.
And this relates to the Oasis reunion shows, where some bright spark somewhere has said, I think it's where are we? Akash Sood from Knightswood Pharmacy. I'm not quite sure why he's a big authority, but has said that as a consequence of all of these people gathering together, that new strands of COVID can infect thousands of people within metres of one another, so you should wear a mask. Can you imagine Oasis fans wearing masks?
No.
There's also, I think elsewhere, there was a story that one of the venues that Oasis played at recently broke the record for the amount of alcohol drunk.
I'm not surprised. Listen, I mean, I'm
how are you going to drink your pint through your mask?
Well, exactly. And can you imagine any self-respecting Oasis fan with a bucket hat on and a mask? That is not a good look, is it?
Have you been?
No, I haven't been. I'm a music fan. I thought their first 2 albums were brilliant. Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory. If I'm honest, after that, I thought it kind of petered out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that
as the drugs kicked in more.
Yeah, exactly that. But I'm glad they're touring, and I think, you know, it's music for a generation.
Yeah. I've not been. I don't know what the ticket costs are now, but I do see on social media every now and again that you know, there's a lot of people that bought tickets that then don't go. I think our old friend Dawn Neeson was trying to get rid of a couple of tickets the other night for face value. Dean in the galleries just said they're 350 quid. It's still a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose on the basis that they haven't been together for a decade or so, and they probably will split up again.
Yeah.
Is this the last ever tour?
Do you know,
they're just going to spend the money and see.
It's really interesting. I tried to get tickets for Bob Dylan a couple of weeks ago, only on the basis that he's a legend, right? And we're not making musical legends anymore. So you can argue that Oasis, you could put into the category, they are musical legends, right? But the music is coming through, and I know how old this makes me sound, in the last 10 years. We're not going to be queuing up in 30 years' time to get tickets to see Ollie Murs, right? It's not going to happen. So exactly. So people like Bob Dylan,
he would be really offended by that. And he's a fellow Essex person.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he's marvellous. But
he is touring soon, by the way, because my daughter just bought tickets and they're about 30 quid.
Right. But I don't think we can put him in the same category as Bob Dylan or Elton John or indeed Oasis. So I just think it's interesting that, I mean, I would pay 350 quid to see Oasis. I would.
Should we go?
Well, it depends where it is.
If anyone's got cheap tickets for me and Duncan, let us know.
What's your favourite Oasis song?
Stand By Me, I think.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, for me, I love Wonderwall.
The guitar riff, Wonderwall's cool.
I was once in a pub on the south coast and it came on the jukebox. It was one of those moments where everyone in the pub sang along, and you get a bit choked up because it's like, this is just amazing.
I think there's been allegations that the brothers are only doing this for the money. Of course they are.
Surely not.
Of course they are. But why shouldn't they? I mean, they are iconic. They are legends, and the music's pretty good. And I love the swagger, don't you? It kind of, whenever I hear an Oasis song, it just reminds me of the cocky arrogance of both of them, Liam and Noel, from back in the 90s. And yeah, maybe, I don't know, better times, maybe not.
Well, it was all part of that.
It was the beginning of the Blair thing, and they were all invited into Downing Street.
Yeah, and that kind of, what was it called? Not Rule Britannia, what was it called? I can't remember, but they created this new Labour thing, you know, and you're right, you had Blur and you had
Cool Britannia.
That's it, Cool Britannia, Cool Britannia. And I mean, you know, I didn't like the Blair government, but there was a sense of change in the country and maybe optimism, but we did end up slightly remarkably disappointed.
Didn't Keir Starmer try to replicate that? So you know, when Tony Blair was first elected, he got the music icons of the day into Downing Street. And there were loads of them, and it was fabulous. And it was kind of almost a celebration of what was to come in terms of the Blair government. Keir Starmer a few weeks ago tried to replicate it, and I think hardly anybody turned up.
But he's not Tony Blair. You see, Tony Blair was a genuine fan of music because he was in a band when he was at university, right? And he liked his music. I think he's on the record as saying one of his favourite bands was the 70s band Free.
But isn't it testimony to Keir Starmer that only, I think, Bucks Fizz or something turned up?
But he doesn't like... He did an interview a while ago and someone asked him what his favourite record was and he was like, oh, I don't really listen to music. And it's like, what's the matter with you?
That's because the man has no soul.
Exactly.
No character.
That's why no one turns up at his Downing Street
So it turns out Keir Starmer is a hollow husk when it comes to his music taste and his politics. Who knew? Well, guess what? We all knew, really, didn't we? And again, still notable by his absence. We said this an hour ago, Duncan, didn't we?
Where are you, Keir?
Yeah, Keir.
Where are you?
Maybe you should, you are Prime Minister after all. Maybe you should stand up and maybe make a statement about what's happening in terms of Britain's unrest. The fact that there are thousands, tens of thousands of people on the streets protesting against your migrant policy and your lack of action when it comes to migration in this country. Maybe you should say something, or as we're suggesting here, Duncan, you're too damn scared to do so because you don't know which side of the fence to fall off of. And if you are pressured into doing so by the likes of Angela Rayner and who's his chief advisor, Morgan McSweeney. I dare say you'll come down on the side of the extreme left and start labelling ordinary mums from Chigwell as far-right monsters again. And that doesn't really help us, does it, going into the summer? If we want to prevent riots, which we do, by the way, protest is one thing, riots are quite another, then, of course, what we want, really, is some sense, some guidance, but also some sympathy from Keir Starmer and the Labour front bench, don't we? Rather than either an absolute apathy and absence, or indeed him telling the majority of the public that because they don't want a migrant hotel next to their house full of people that have been charged with sexual offences, as is the case, and I go back to the point earlier, charged, not convicted, how is that wrong to object to such? I think, even the most left of lefties surely would have some sympathy with those individuals in those areas of Manchester and Canary Wharf and the Barbican and Newcastle and Diss in Norfolk and everywhere else that this is all starting to erupt. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. You can do what lots of people have done already this morning, even though it's very early. It's only 7:22, and that's to text 87222 plus the word talk. We're going to take a break, and after the break, we will indeed be taking calls and reading out some of your messages. I'm still with Duncan Barks. It's 7:22. Back after this.
Doctors are now saying that he is fit to be released. But there's clearly huge concerns about him being released back onto Britain's streets. Yeah. The police have applied for a notification order, which is kind of a last kind of chance they have to have some sort of control over his release. While in US custody, he said that he was a mastermind of the 7/7 bombings and of 9/11. And this is someone who, you know, we're reporting today that he could be released imminently onto our streets.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk Breakfast. We're going to take your calls in a second, but Duncan has just hijacked me with some news. He said, I'll tell you how interesting Keir Starmer is. In 2020, he went on Desert Island Discs. So you have some intel. Duncan.
Yes. Well, the vast team of researchers here at Talk has played a blinder this morning. So he went on Desert Island Discs, and that's where you have to select 8 tunes that you quite like. This is...
And these are a real measure of the person.
Oh, well, there's something here that is a little bit credible. I'll get to that in a second. So there's Dobie Gray, Out on the Floor, which I think is a bit of a Northern Soul classic. Then he lurched to Symphony No. 6 in F major.
By Beethoven?
Yeah, by Beethoven.
That was his second choice?
That was his second choice. Then Jim Reeves' Welcome to My World, which is so middle of the road, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then he had Falling and Laughing by Orange Juice. Now, that is a little bit credible. So that was Scottish band. Edward Collins was the lead singer.
In the 80s?
Yeah, that would have been early 80s, I would have thought. That's kind of cool. Then this one's peculiar. The Edwin Hawkins Singers' Oh Happy Day, which I think I'm right in saying, if someone wants to Google it, was from a musical called Hair, where everyone was naked.
Wow.
I could be wrong.
That's proper lefty stuff. But then number 6...
Spin.
Yeah,
that is Spin, isn't it?
This is definitely an advisor saying, "Well, don't forget to put this in." 3 Lions by Baddiel, Skinner and the Lightning Seeds, because he professes to be an ardent football fan, doesn't he? All right, okay, Disc 7, another piano concerto. Bridge Over Troubled Water, number 8. My goodness, that's appropriate.
But that is Artist for Grenfell featuring Stormy, so that's not the original. That is also a political.
Well, he's being political there, isn't he? Anyway, right, okay. Yeah, he's boring, basically, I think is the upshot there.
What
right,
a boring record.
Let's take a call, because I understand that Anne from Gwynedd is not boring. Anne, thanks for calling Talk. How are you this morning?
Annoyed. But
Go on.
can I say, I love your programme.
Thank
you. I came down this morning quite happy, and then we had the Belmarsh prison.
Ah, yes.
My husband was old enough to do national service, and he always said that if anybody did any wrong and they were put in their prison, it was blooming hard.
As it should be.
And they
That's what
rarely
prison
did
is.
it again.
It's supposed to be a punishment, apparently.
It's supposed to be a punishment.
So you're miffed. So I'm sorry to destroy your morning, Anne.
Go on.
Well, no, on the basis you came down happy, and then, of course, we've given you the news that you've effectively got a terrorist serving 50...
It gives me something to do. Now,
we've triggered you,
have
have
the
we?
soldiers, the retired soldiers, as wardens, maybe something could be done. But years ago, I think it was the Isle of Man, if they had any slight wrongdoers, they gave them the birch. How about shoplifters having a couple of strokes of the birch?
Well, I mean, shoplifters aren't even caught for shoplifting, though, so there's no punishment levied, because, of course, they're just allowed to wander off with Nike shoes and Apple laptops under their arms.
Yeah, but if they had a bit of pain, maybe, you know.
So you honestly, genuinely think that capital punishment is the answer?
Well,
should we just be tougher and put them in prison?
Isn't it? The other one, you know that advert for crypto?
Coinbase, yeah.
Yeah, well, if you show all the lies that Starmer's done and then show that as a comparison, it would be brilliant. It would make my day.
Isn't it a sad testimony? I mean, maybe we'll play that again, actually. A sad testimony to Britain that we've got a company, a crypto company in another country, Coinbase, as we played about half an hour ago, have actually gone to the expense and the trouble of making a TV advert that parodies the state of Britain, literally with water pouring through ceilings, people queuing up to buy fish fingers that are £100 a pack. I mean, of course, it's an exaggeration, but we are on that slippery slope, aren't we, Anne? I mean, that is generally the direction that we're going in under this government, under Keir Starmer. I mean what I say here. We sat this morning before we came on air, perplexed at the number of bad news stories, the number of issues there are in Britain now that we are compelled to talk about as a media organisation. And sometimes you genuinely sit there kind of with your head in your hands thinking, we've got to talk about all of this bad stuff, migrant hotels, yes, terrorists in prison being given Freeview television and more money for phone cards, and no doubt a choice of lunch and maybe an extra fluffy pillow. I mean, this is not Premier Inn. This should be prison, shouldn't it?
Well, exactly. And we were once a great nation. I think we're losing the pride because we're being ridiculed.
Do you think our politicians hate Britain and Britons? Do you think that's the problem? Do you think they just don't like us very much? I mean, when I see these Antifa masked thugs outside these migrant hotels in the Barbican, Canary Wharf, Epping, Manchester, Newcastle, I'm not sure that they're pro-refugee and anti-far right. I think they hate this country, Anne.
I think they just despair and think, what's the point?
No, protesters despair. But I mean the masked agitators.
No, I meant the police.
Oh, the police.
The police and everything. I think they just think, what is the point?
Well, no, but the police take their orders, right? So, and we would never criticise the rank and file police because, of course, they do what they're told to do. But I'll tell you what I saw on lots of footage that I saw yesterday and overnight on various YouTube channels and various streams on Twitter, and also had a conversation with Mayor Toosey last night with regard to the scenes that unfolded at those various migrant hotels yesterday, and that is that generally 99%, it seems, of the protests and protesters worried about what's happening to their local area because of these migrant hotels and the people in them. They were peaceful. But as soon as you get masked Antifa thugs carrying their copycat cookie cutter billboards that all say refugees welcome, presumably infinitum, and smash the far right and so on, those agitators, those anarchists come in and cause trouble. Now, here's a supposition, and maybe I can ask Duncan if he thinks I might be onto something here. I think, going back to what Keir Starmer said back in the summer about the protesters being rioters and far right, wouldn't it be very convenient if, because of the protests at all of these migrant hotels across the country, if you could agitate to then cause some trouble in those crowds so that you could then label those legitimate peaceful protesters as far right, it then helps you as a government that is sitting on its hands, that is apathetic, that is out of touch, that is incompetent. It helps you to dismiss their argument and their protests as far right. Duncan, do you think I'm onto something?
I think you are onto something because it's good old-fashioned Machiavellian politics, if you like, or even the dark ops or dark arts. You create a distraction and it takes people away from what the real problem is.
Or create a bogeyman and then seek to destroy it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I still think there's a powerful group who is trying to ruin, and they are succeeding in ruining this lovely country of ours.
Who do you think that is, Anne?
I have no idea. I'm not that clever.
I mean, look,
I'm just a citizen that loves this country.
I know, as do I, as does Duncan, as do the people that watch and listen to this channel. But it seems that we are being undermined. We're being undermined by the mainstream media, undermined by our police authorities, so those in control, that's the police and crime commissioners and chief constables, undermined by the civil service, undermined and ignored by our politicians. So is it any wonder that we've now got thousands of people, maybe in the next few weeks, and again, I'll tread carefully here, I'm not encouraging, I'm not inciting, but tens of thousands of people potentially on the streets protesting against this government's approach to migration, this open door policy whereby not only do we already have 25,000 illegal migrants here on boats this year alone, so that's just the first 7 months of this year, but we also know that they're all anonymous. They throw their IDs over the side of the boat. They could be from anywhere. They could be anyone. In fact, we know that many of them have had criminal backgrounds, they do have criminal intent. And to Robert Jenrick's point, the man as shadow minister that tried to point out to the public that some of these people coming over on boats are terrorists. They are ISIS members. He was closed down and shouted down by a pompous permanent secretary of the Home Office. But is it any wonder, Anne, that people are protesting? And do you think we should? Or should we wind our necks in and do what Keir Starmer presumably wants, which is just us to shut up and allow him to carry on ruining this once great nation of ours?
Well, when they first started to come in, the majority of people, when they threw away the passports, common sense would know that they're going to be up to no good. And if they haven't got a passport, why let them in? Because my understanding is if you haven't got a passport, you're not welcome to Britain.
Yeah. Well, that should be the case.
Maybe I'm just naive.
Well, no, it's not naive, and it's also not naive that, if there are, by the way, genuine asylum seekers that are fleeing persecution, then of course we should give them a fair hearing. But that's not the case, is it? We know that, particularly when you see, and we showed a clip earlier on, I don't know if we've got it, and as I'm talking we can put up the clip of the hotel that was receiving a busload of migrants the other night under the cover of darkness. We've got, as you see in a second, if you're watching YouTube, you'll see the migrants getting off the bus. This is, I think this is the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf. This is at just gone 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, so yesterday morning, the early hours. This is the authorities bussing in 40 or 50 migrants. What's the common denominator? I don't know if you can see this, Anne. The common denominator of all of the individuals getting off that bus, they're all men. There are no women. There are no children. Answer me this, anybody, 0344 499 1000. Why is it that asylum seekers only seem to be 25-year-old men from various countries, what we would call fighting age men? Where are the 80-year-olds? Where are the women? Where are the children? 0344 499 1000. Anne, can you answer that?
No, because, as I say, I think common sense knows that if they're all young men, there's going to be trouble eventually. What's the saying? The devil and idle hands?
Yeah, idle hands make the devil's work. Duncan, let me ask you this. Do we think... So I think that the solution to curtailing our migration problem is simple. It is one of obstacle, disincentive, taking away incentives, as we said earlier on in the show, not paying people 46 quid a week, not giving them Dominoes when they come off the boat, not giving them iPhones, no trampoline lessons, I mean, call me old-fashioned, not four-star hotel accommodation. It is easy to do this, or put them in internment camps as soon as they get to Dover. That would be my solution, and certainly not to incentivise them financially, no free NHS, no free education, and so on. Why, honestly, do we think the government doesn't do that? Because I don't believe that this government and its advisers can be that incompetent, all of them, that they don't stop this. So therefore they must want this to happen. What do we think their motive is?
I don't know what the motive is, but I'd say that there is something in the DNA of Labour politicians and Labour advisers, which is, I'll speak quite freely about it, which is everyone is welcome. And that goes back to New Labour and the Blair administration.
And if we ask them the question, do you mean everyone? Those Antifa masked thugs yesterday will say yes.
Yes.
So what, even if they
must give people the benefit of the doubt. That's the mindset.
So even if they are criminals, even if they've got a criminal record back in Syria, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Albania, and even if we know that they're not going to contribute, for instance, look, this is going to be a controversial thing to say, but I'm going to say it because it's a fact. 75% of people in this country from Somalia are in taxpayer-funded social housing. So that's an issue. Knowing that people that come here from Somalia are more likely to be consumptive than contributors should make us think twice, shouldn't it?
It should do. Look, it's not about demonising genuine asylum seekers. It is about a very simple fact here, which is this government has failed to secure this country's borders, right? That's dereliction of duty of any government. The Conservatives, the last government, were guilty of it, but at least they were trying to do something with the Rwanda scheme, which, of course, we know Labour got rid of very quickly for political reasons. So I believe the world, and it depresses me to say this, the world is laughing at us. Even Macron.
Well, and we've seen that from that video. Look, we've got to call it a day, I'm afraid. An hour and 38 minutes.
Flown by.
Brilliant, Duncan Barks.
Always a pleasure.
Very, very much indeed. And thank you to you in Gwynedd. Thank you very much for your call. You were great, and I share your concerns. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the fact that he's moving nuclear submarines nearer to Russia. What could possibly go wrong? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to be talking about all things Donald Trump now. You may have seen this in the news over the last few hours or so. Consequential to the former president of Russia, Medvedev, I don't know, poking a stick, I think it's fair to say, at Donald Trump over this ultimatum, I suppose, that Donald Trump, as President of the United States, has issued to America with regard to the Ukraine and his agenda, his timeline for peace. The former president of Russia, Medvedev, has not taken too lightly to that. And as a consequence, as always happens, I'm afraid, we've ended up in a situation where the talk has turned to nuclear destruction, and the inference being from the Russian former president that my nuclear arsenal is bigger than yours. So, of course, Donald Trump, not a man that I think we know by now is to be trifled with. I mean, this is a man that's very thin-skinned, rightly or wrongly, and has a bit of an ego. And unfortunately, when even the likes and the might of Russia start antagonising Donald Trump, guess what's going to happen? Yes, he's going to respond, and he has, and he made an announcement. So he didn't just do this, he actually told everybody that he'd done it. He's now moved 2 nuclear submarines further towards Russia, as, he would say not retaliation, but in his words, to make sure that America is safe. Wow, okay, well, again, as I said just now, what could possibly go wrong? Well, let's talk to Simon Diggins, who is a military and defence analyst. Simon, welcome to Talk.
It's a rather strange phenomenon to see the announcements of the movement of nuclear submarines. Generally speaking, these things are kept deep in the oceans. They move very quietly, very silently. Nobody knows where they are. If you talk to our own Royal Navy and you say, oh, look, I've seen a submarine, they say, what submarine? I mean, it's called the silent service for a reason. Yep. And here's Donald Trump actually effectively announcing their movements. There is no doubt, Russell, this is essentially a kind of psychological ploy on his part.
It's sabre-rattling, isn't it?
It's sort of sabre-rattling. It's certainly saying that, look, I've got things that you can do. I mean, we have to be very careful with Medvedev. I mean, he was, as you rightly said, the former president. But other than that, he's basically Putin's mini-me. And he's used by Putin to say things that Putin himself doesn't say.
But he does have a defence role within the Russian Federation.
He has. You're right, quite right. I think he's chair of the National Security Council or something like that. So he's got that. But what it also reminds us, of course, is that Putin himself has got a constituency. We always talk about Putin as being some sort of authoritarian leader. But there are people he has to listen to, has to understand, and has to work with. And some of them are much more, even more nationalist, more revanchist, more aggressive than he is. And you can't not respond to an American president who basically gives you a deadline and said, either resolve this in 10 to 12 days or, we're not talking again. I mean, this is Trumpian rhetoric. We know that. We understand that. But the Russians will respond to that, and then Trump's come back with this psychological ploy that we're going to move to our submarines closer to you, with an implication of a threat.
And has there been a Russian response further to that?
Not I'm aware of, but my expectation that there will be some kind of response before that. During the initial invasion of Ukraine, the Russians deployed what they call the boom submarines in the far north. They made it clear that they were moving them around there. Again, just pointing out that they have this sort of weapon systems and would at least in potential terms be prepared to use them. So this sort of ploy does go on. But as you also rightly said, what could possibly go wrong? Well, lots of things could go wrong. And that's the danger for the rest of the world. People make mistakes with this. You may recall, I'm old enough to remember back to sort of the early 1980s and that famous 9 and 90 red balloons. But you recall then the kind of level of tensions that existed towards the end of the Cold War, where people were more concerned really about accidental firing or an accidental wrong signal being sent to the other side.
But didn't we also see an element of this in the previous Trump administration at the beginning of his first term with regard to North Korea? I mean, this is quite reminiscent of that. There was a lot of poking and toing and froing and kind of, mine is bigger than yours back then. This is reminiscent of that, isn't it?
It is, and then of course we then had the meeting between President Trump and the North Korean president as well.
And now they're best mates.
Well, I think they kind of fell out a bit in much the same way as Trump and Putin kind of fell out. You recall that Trump boasted he'd be able to solve the Ukraine issue within 24 hours. He then gave away the two aces he had in his pack in terms of Ukraine's future, and then negotiated since then really with nothing to negotiate and not enough leverage over Putin. Yeah. So that didn't go very well for Trump. But I think Trump's aware of that. In terms of how he now deals with Putin or tries to deal with Putin.
And talk of the dead hand, that seems to be referenced in a lot of the newspapers this morning in so far as this story. Can you just explain to us what the dead hand is with, I think it's Medvedev that's referenced that specifically?
Yeah, what it basically says is that they have systems in place that if America, for example, launched a first strike against Russia and killed all leadership, their systems had if you like, an automatic fallback plan that they would launch anyway. Automatically, and it's a kind of the hope insofar as
sorry, that's not what we want to hear at 7:45 on a Sunday morning, is it?
It really isn't, though. Rather, spoil the day. Yeah. I mean, you'll recall that it comes from trains, and the idea that if a driver was injured or killed, the train would automatically stop, and that's where the idea comes from there. What it does mean, unfortunately, is that what we all hope is a situation with what is a very delicate balance of power, which is that there'll be some intelligent human at the centre of it going, do you know what, this really isn't worth it. If they are talking about that, then that's unfortunate. That really does mean that in the event of an accident, a misunderstanding, a misperception, then something could go very badly wrong. Okay. And that's one of the factors of it.
But Simon, the question surely on everybody's lips this morning that's listening to this and watching this is, does this blow over by next weekend, or is this another Bay of Pigs moment?
No, it's not a Bay of Pigs moment, I don't think. I mean, I think there's a long way to go for that. The difficulty with this is that the essence of the strategic nuclear deterrent is it's been very stable. It's psychologically stable, it's militarily stable. And here's Donald Trump effectively responding to Medvedev's rhetoric, no doubt about it, responding to that, actually now bringing these things into play. And so, if you like, the stability of this system, dangerous, terrible though it is, is starting to be questioned. And then when you start to unravel that stability bit, which is a kind of mutual stability, and then you really don't know where the consequences are and where it's going to go to. And that, I think, is the real challenge for us at the moment. So it's one more thread being pulled in what is a very complex sort of tapestry of competition, cooperation, defiance, opposition, oppression, whatever that goes on. And you start pulling this thread, we're not quite sure where it's going to go, and I think that's the real worry.
But you don't think it will escalate? I mean, on the basis that this is effectively the ego of two very egotistical men, that hopefully this will fade away, this will dissipate as quickly as it reared its head?
It might. But there is also the option, as I said, there is a human being at the centre of this, and Putin himself, and I think it's important to recognise, Putin has a constituency, and some of that constituency, some of it's very much more stable, some of it's more saying, look, we've done what we need to do, but others are much more nationalistic, much more aggressive, much more revanchist, even stupid enough to think they could somehow survive a nuclear war.
Well, and Simon, I was going to ask the question, who's got the most warheads, but it's pretty moot as a question, isn't it? Because you don't need that many to annihilate each other and therefore the rest of the world. So the fact that Russia might have, I don't know, 18,000 nuclear warheads and the United States has only got 15,000 is pretty irrelevant, isn't it?
It is. It's called mutually assured destruction for a reason. And I mean, I think that's pretty well where it gets to. The real challenge, I think, for us actually is not necessarily the strategic nuclear deterrent, it's managing the tactical nuclear weapons. And here we have a real disparity, not just in terms of numbers, but also in terms of doctrine. And that's much more dangerous and much more problematic.
And Simon, do you think we're going to start seeing a show of authority, muscle flexing from Russia? You know, what they tend to do, particularly where Britain's concerned, where they'll fly a military plane rather close to our aerospace, or they'll send a Russian frigate up the English Channel. I mean, do you think we're going to start seeing that, where obviously a bit of retribution, a bit of arm flexing from the Russians towards the West as a consequence of this argument?
No, I think that's a very good point, Russell, because I think we are often seen as the vulnerable element of this. We are permanent five members.
Well, under this government we are.
Well, I don't disagree about under this government, but don't forget in 2016.
Can you just imagine everybody? Sorry, 0344 499 1000. You imagine Keir Starmer being in the middle of an argument like this? I mean, dear oh dear. I mean, he can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag, can he? Can you imagine our Prime Minister being responsible for trying to diffuse an issue like this if we were involved against the likes of Medvedev or Putin? My goodness, it doesn't even bear thinking about, Simon, does it?
Well, I think the difficulty we've got is that we have very little leverage over anything. I mean, like our interventions in the Middle East and various other places, people just aren't interested. They will. We will say the right thing in their view. They may be right thing, right the wrong thing, but we're just ignored. And that really is our weakness at the moment. We have these pretensions to being a permanent five member of the Security Council, a so-called great power, and actually we just don't have the actual power itself to back up that rhetoric and everything goes there. So they won't listen to us, but they will threaten us. And we, because we're closer to Russia than America, are likely to see more incursions, the aircraft, the spy vessels, and the ships sailing right up the English Channel. Really, just cock a snoop at us and just go, here you go. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, well, if that does happen, well, we won't do anything about it, of course, will we? Because we never ever do. But if it does happen, you'll hear it here first. Simon Diggins, thank you very much indeed, military and defence analyst. So I don't think we're going to be annihilated by lunchtime, but I guess it depends to those two. Right, we're going to take a break, and afterwards we're going to be talking about the potential for summer riots, and we're going to be talking about that with Lucy White, who is a public policy specialist. I'm Russell Quirk. This is Talk Breakfast.
The people that we want knives from have knives prior to the knives amnesties. During the knife amnesty, they continue to carry their knives. After the knife amnesty, the people that are still left with the knives are those that we want the knives from. The people that hand it in are normally law-abiding members of the public that might have found a machete in their garage, unlikely to get into the hands of one of the gangs I've just told you about. So the circle goes round and round.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to Lucy White, public policy specialist. We're talking about all things migration, the unrest across the country at migrant hotels, the legitimate, in my view, protest. Would you agree, Lucy? It's legitimate to protest against what's going on?
Hi, good morning, Russell. Great to be here. Yes, absolutely. So, when you reflect upon this, the main question to ask is, do protests actually work? And the answer is yes. So I would take the key example of the suffragettes movement, for example, early 1900s, which started off as small-scale protests and led to great change for women and women's rights. So if we look at the illegal migrant protests, the answer is, are they working? And, well, the question is, are they working? And the answer is yes. Because if we take the Bell Hotel in Epping, we know that the Epping Forest District Council have voted to urge the Home Office to immediately and permanently close the Bell Hotel. So protests are working. And the other question is, why do people feel the need to protest? It's because they feel that they lack participation parity, which is, in sense, when someone loses their political voice or they feel excluded from political decision making, they lack participation parity, which means that the only way that they feel that their voices can be heard is through protests.
Well, there's another way of saying that, Lucy, isn't there? That the public, the majority of the public, and again, when you look at polls in terms of people being concerned at whatever level about illegal migration, the majority of public are concerned. But it's a fact that the public feel completely ignored. Being not at parity is one way of putting it, but let's be blatant about this. Let's be very clear. The public and their concerns with regard to migration on a social level, an economic level, a criminal level, are being unheard and ignored. And I hear you in terms of the fact that this is working on a local level. I've certainly seen, as you say, in Epping, the local council there and councillors voting, I think, unanimously that the Bell Hotel should be closed, and local MPs, Alex Burghardt, actually, who's in the neighbouring constituency, he's my MP, been very vocal. But of course, the Home Office are not responding. The Home Office, as we've seen from Yvette Cooper this morning, her response is simply to say that they're going to prosecute criminal gangs for the adverts that they place on TikTok. That's not really going to cut it, is it?
No, of course not. It's just gimmick after gimmick. We saw recently, Starmer said he's making a deal with Macron where he's going to do a one-in, one-out sort of policy. And now we have Yvette Cooper saying this. I think it's all nonsense. And I think we need to be more like Greece. So if you look at Greece, just now in July, they have suspended their asylum applications for 3 months. So anyone trying to enter Greece now will be arrested and detained. And the question is why? It's because there was a surge of 350% of arrivals in Greece. And it's just, they simply could not cope. So they have had to close their asylum system for 3 months. So if Greece can do that, why can we not do that?
Lucy, can you see that happening here? I mean, I can't, on the basis that you've got this movement, this antagonistic movement, anarchists, I would say, on the left, those masked Antifa thugs with their cookie-cutter placards that all seem to come out of the back of a rented van. I mean, it's all very organised and very funded. On the basis that you've got a faction politically that seems determined to advance this ludicrous idea that all refugees at any volume, no matter who they are welcome. And of course, the fact that we have a left-wing government that also would subscribe to the same view, as is obvious actually by their inaction when it comes to migration. I mean, there's absolutely no chance of our government deciding to close the door on asylum in Britain anytime soon. And of course, characterised by the fact that on Friday we saw another 900 people arrive here. And when I say people, by the way, as we saw from the scenes that we've been showing this morning at the Britannia Hotel, all of the people, and I say all, let's say it's 95% or so, of those that are coming here and then being bussed to these migrant hotels are young fighting-age men in their 20s. There are no women, there are no children, there are no elderly. It's all fighting-age men.
Yeah, precisely. So I think the other issue to consider is in terms of a policy. So if you were, let's just say, put us in a scenario. If you're in a building that the fire alarm goes off and you need to evacuate quickly, you go to your nearest emergency exit. You don't run around the building and say, oh, let me find a different emergency.
And Lucy, I'm so sorry to you. I've got to hurry because we've got to go to the news. Just make your point really quick if you don't mind. Sorry.
OK, sure. So essentially, the point is that asylum seeker deals should be made with the nearest safe country. They shouldn't be coming all the way to the UK.
100%. And that's the basis of asylum, isn't it? That you claim asylum in the first country that you land in, and that's why we shouldn't be taking them from France. Lucy White, thank you very much indeed. Sorry I had to cut you short. Back after the news, it's 8 o'clock.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah, a rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because in the 70s I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks Thanks for joining me. If you didn't realise already, I'm Russell Quirk. I'm in for Alex Phillips today. I'm here till 10 o'clock. And then after that is, of course, Peter Cardwell. I'm going to be talking to Charlie Rowley in a minute, so we'll have a little chat with him about all things migration, because that seems to all be going so fantastically well, doesn't it? No one seems to be objecting at all. But in the meantime, I just want to go through a few messages, because we've had lots of your calls, by the way. Thank you. We will try and get to some of you over the next couple of hours. 0344 499 1000 if you want to join in. Lots of text messages as well, so lots of people have texted 87222 plus the word talk. Maureen has done that. She says, good morning, I love the show. Well, thank you. I was just watching those migrants going into the hotel during the night on your show, and I feel sick. They look like they're in the forces. As in the armed forces, I guess you mean, Maureen. Ready for action. I can imagine all of the TikTok videos being shown in Calais at this lovely hotel now. No wonder they are flocking over. Yes, indeed, Maureen. Who knew that if you provided loads of incentive for people to come to this country in terms of accommodation, NHS, money and trampoline lessons, that they would come flocking? Yes, indeed, that's exactly what's happening. 25,000, by the way, up until the end of July. Just 900 on Friday, and of course most of these people, they're not only illegal, they're not only economic migrants, we don't even know who they are unidentified. Goodness knows who is in this country. So no wonder people are protesting, and indeed no wonder people are protesting when they hear, as we've been talking about over the last 2 hours, that there are some elements in these migrant hotels that have already been charged, not convicted, charged with sexual offences. One person in the Bell Hotel that kicked this whole thing off 3 or 4 weeks ago, charged with 3 sexual offences, not convicted, just charged, innocent till proven guilty. And of course, we now have news that 2 asylum seekers from Afghanistan in their 20s, fun enough, because they all seem to be, from Nuneaton, have been charged, again, not convicted, of raping, or allegedly raping, a 12-year-old girl. Let's read you another one. This is David from Worcestershire. Instead of rioting, I've come up with a campaign. Jeer for 2-tier. Once the football season starts, which I think is next week, isn't it? At every football match across the land, we should boo Starmer. That's a great hashtag, actually, Dave. Jeer for 2-tier. We should do it on the 10-minute mark to send a message to number 10. And on the subject of Donald Trump, we're talking about him moving nuclear submarines nearer Russia. A bit of posturing, bit of sabre rattling there, as we just rehearsed just now with Simon Diggins. Daryl, I think it is, Daryl from Blackburn says, Russell, you're underestimating what Starmer could achieve in regards to America and Russia. This is the man who thinks he can solve the Middle East problem. Yeah, I don't think he's solved any problems in his first 13 months, has he? And just finally, before we move on to our friend Charlie, if you notice, he said the migrants entering the hotel in London have all got the same tops and trousers on. Who gave them their clothing? Well, yes, as we've just pointed out, they're all men, no women, no children, no elderly. Yeah, why are they wearing... Are you suggesting, Alan, that they're in uniform? Wow, that's a bit scary. Charlie Rowley, friend of the show, friend of mine. Charlie, how are you this morning? Are you incensed? I don't know if you've listened to the first 2 hours of this show, but it's rather triggering, I think it's fair to say, my friend.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me, Russell. I think that's absolutely right. And the pictures that we're seeing on social media, clips of people who are protesting outside, legitimately protesting in their hometowns, wanting to send a very clear message to their local authorities and to their government that they don't want their hotels, they don't want their communities infiltrated by people that have come into this country illegally, some of who are facing those very, very serious charges. As you say, no convictions, but you would certainly hope that if the Prime Minister and the UK government can set up super quick court services during a period of riots last summer, they can do exactly the same for people that might have broken into the country illegally who are facing those kinds of allegations. And if they are convicted, they should be on the first flight home.
How long, Charlie, do you think, before Keir Starmer stands at a lectern outside Downing Street and calls all of these legitimate, concerned, patriotic protesters members of the far right?
Well, it's funny because still some of the press releases today, the spokesperson for either the Home Office or for Number 10, the statements that they're putting out, still refer to migrants as people who somehow have been tricked by social media, that they've been sold a lie. Now, I've no doubt on social media. Now, I've no doubt there has been an overinflation of the what Britain is like on social media. Probably no different to
But Charlie, it's not far off, is it? I mean, the reality is, if you look at the Home Office website right now, there is a page that says, you can Google this, everybody at home, by the way, Google Home Office, this is what you get, and you will find a page that is live right now that actually invites, I would say, asylum seekers to Britain on the basis that it tells you that you're going to get accommodation, healthcare, including dentistry, which of course us mere mortals that are born here don't get. You're going to get 46 quid a week. If you come over with a pregnant partner, woman, by the way, you're going to get 300 quid. Well, of course, that never happens because none of these asylum seekers seem to be female or children, or at least not proper children. There might be some people that purport to be children who are really 25 years old. Of course, that happens. But there is that absolute invitation, that incentive on the Home Office's website. And I would suggest, Charlie, that what we do is to take that down and change our policy so that there is no incentive, there's no reward, there's certainly no driving lessons, there's certainly no McDonald's waiting for you in your 4-star hotel the minute you get off your dinghy from Calais. But that would be, I mean, a ridiculous suggestion on my part, wouldn't it? But of course, Yvette Cooper's answer to this, Charlie, over the last 24 hours or so has been that she simply wants to track down the people that are placing TikTok video ads.
That's absolutely right. And, the Home Office...
This is comedy, Charlie.
Yes.
This is comedy.
Exactly. And the Home Office still refer to it as irregular migration.
Irregular. Why won't they say illegal?
Exactly. You've got to call it out for exactly what it is, and that's the problem. It goes back to your earlier point. Last summer during the riots, the Prime Minister was only too quick to get behind a podium in Number 10 and decry all of the riots for being far right. We're now seeing legitimate protesters, families, women, communities coming together to protest these illegal migrants that are bedding down in their communities. Someone who I thought, much like the previous message from Maureen, when I saw migrants being bussed into the Canary Wharf photo, flanked by security, all in similar clothing, it almost as if they were getting the service like the England football team. Arriving to a 4-star, 5-star hotel about to compete in competition. Everybody's sort of, happy, jumping off the bus there into their luxury accommodation. It was beggars belief. And so I think, look, when we're seeing these legitimate protests, you're now seeing counter-protests from people who are on the far left.
But they're just antagonists. They're just troublemakers, it seems.
And exactly, and they are the ones that are wearing masks.
But they're also the ones that were the ones that not only wearing masks, but from the video footage I saw from various different streams yesterday on YouTube and X, they were the ones that were pushing the police. They were the ones that were shouting abuse. They were the ones that were throwing things at the police. Yet, two things. First of all, I haven't seen that in the media anywhere this morning. I've gone through the Sunday papers at about 5:30 this morning with the production team here. It doesn't seem that any members of the left, the Antifa anarchic thugs, none of them seem to have been arrested. And in fact, the footage I've seen was that actually when they were being obnoxious, violent, aggressive, and shouting inappropriate things, the police simply pushed them back into the crowd. Whereas if you're on the patriotic, concerned resident side of the argument, you get your arm put up your back and arrested. In fact, yesterday, Mayor Tusi was saying to me last night, I kid you not, someone seems to have been, I'm choosing my words carefully here because it seems it's correct, someone seems to have been arrested yesterday in London at those protests for the offence, inverted commas, of, wait for it, wearing an England football shirt. I'll just let that sit there for a second. Wearing an England football shirt. I didn't realise that was an offence, Charlie.
Well, of course it's not. And if that is the case, then I'm sure the media will want to be all over that and reporting what has gone awfully wrong, to put it mildly, politely rather, in that situation. And that is the problem that we face, because we're seeing more protests, genuine protests, legitimate protests by communities that have got a genuine concern. They are being matched by people on the far left who I think I'll be waiting some time for the Prime Minister to come out and decry far left for being the agitators. But that will only provoke, when you hear stories like this, it only takes, I think, a couple more stories, or if you see ever more people coming over in the boats over the summer, where the government and the border force don't seem to have a grip on it, it only takes another story about whether it's just an alleged offence or somebody that is charged, as you say, not convicted, but another allegation of criminal activity of a serious sexual kind or other by someone that has come into the country illegally, or activity by the police who seem to be, all too often, it seems to me, just through the stories that we read, a two-tier gear that we should jeer.
Well, they're definitely approaching different factions within those protests differently. I mean, you can see it. If you look at, look, not everybody subscribes to Instagram and to X, I understand that, but you've only got to look at some of the stuff coming out of YouTube and X, people like AY Audits and so on, live streams, so not edited, just live streams, showing the difference in policing between those that and I'm not going to call them right-wing protesters, they're simply peaceful local individuals that are concerned about their town and their country as a consequence of migration, but the police are dealing with them differently. And that's not the fault of the rank and file police officer, by the way. That is being dictated to them, presumably by politicians, down to senior police officers, down to the rank and file. There is a disparity. And of course, as we've already heard this morning, Charlie, we've got a situation, for instance, where two Afghani asylum seekers that are alleged to have raped a 12-year-old girl, Warwickshire police trying to cover that up. Again, the same old trope as we've had going back to the reason that we've had 20 or 30 years of child rape at the hands of largely Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs, rape gangs, because the authorities, inverted commas, don't want to create community tension. When are these authorities going to grow a backbone and, frankly, start acting like they actually represent the public?
Well, I think that's absolutely right, and a brilliant question. And you would hope, or would have thought, that during that time, and certainly in the last few months when the grooming gang scandal has been massively exposed, that people who are in public office, whether it is local politicians such as our MPs, whether it's police and crime commissioners who are responsible for the police and crime plan and policing people's priorities, when have you heard of your last police and crime commissioner, Russell? What are they doing to put pressure on the chief constables? That is their job, to ensure that they are policing what needs to be policed. That they are
but Charlie, also, sorry to interrupt, the police and crime commissioners, they are the tier that are supposed to be in place as the elected check and balance. And I don't see anything. I mean, when's the last time we heard anything from a police and crime commissioner, apart from Roger Hurst in Essex, of course, who frequently has to go on television and radio to defend his force's indefensible position? Let's just talk about a couple of other things that are related. We saw scenes yesterday also at the same time as these protests going on in various places, Canary Wharf, the Barbican, Manchester, Newcastle, and I'm afraid that is going to grow because people are protesting. They're still being ignored, both by the authorities and particularly by Keir Starmer, it seems. But migrants seen leaning out of windows, blowing kisses at the protesters and filming them whilst laughing. They literally, Charlie, these people are laughing at us.
No, they're taking us all for a ride. And
it's not a very nice one.
No. And
it's not Disneyland, is it?
No. And these are the people who were cheering when Keir Starmer came to power, because they were cheering the end of the Rwanda policy, the Rwanda scheme. Whatever you thought about it, and I know it didn't get going as the last government would have hoped. It didn't really have the time, or it should have just taken off quite literally, and we could have dealt with it in the courts later. That's my personal view. Yeah. But there you are. But you're absolutely right. You've got people that have come into the country who are getting that accommodation, that are getting that benefit, that are getting looked after week after week, who, as you say, purport to be an age far younger than what they actually are, that can't tell us what their name is, can't tell us what country they've come from, can't tell us what conflict they're supposedly fleeing. They are all young to middle-aged men who undoubtedly, if they do receive some sort of asylum claim or case, will then
approval. 60% do get approved, even those that come from Albania and Vietnam, who are not at war. And Charlie, go on, sorry.
No, and I was going to say that will be the next big scandal, I think, because it is far too easy from people that I talk to and from what I've heard. It is just far too easy when you're up against when you have a backlog of cases, particularly in a civil service environment. When you have a backlog of cases, it is far easier to just try and deal with it by approving things, to say we've brought the case load down and then we can focus a bit more tougher on the new applications, rather than explain to somebody or explain to a judge where it might be appealed why you've rejected somebody.
And of course, that backlog is about 80,000 asylum seekers. Because we have such a hapless, inefficient civil Home Office, civil service within the Home Office, largely working from home, probably working about 2 hours a day in reality. As a consequence of that, the backlog grows and grows and grows because, funnily enough, if you've got 900 people coming into this country claiming asylum on a single day, as we did have on Friday, then lo and behold, if you've got some inefficient, hapless, lazy civil servant in the Home Office sitting there, maybe processing one asylum seeker a week, then guess what? The backlog grows. So yes, the answer, and it seems to be from Yvette Cooper this morning in the newspapers, her answer to that is to, in her words, fast-track applications, and she says that therefore those applications are now going to be dealt with in days, not years. What she really means, Charlie, is an amnesty, doesn't she?
Yes, if you're in the Labour government and on the left, that is what it means. But what it should mean is that if you come into this country illegally and within 48 hours, if you can't tell us your name, where you've come from, what conflict you're fleeing, then you're out.
Yep.
There's no two ways about it. It's not about sitting in a hotel for 2 to 3 years, waiting for your claim to be processed, waiting for us.
Just cut the incentives. And talking of incentives, sorry, one other thing I've got to run past you is this. And by the way, audience, if you're not already triggered enough this morning, I'm so sorry. I know it's very early on a Sunday morning. The story this morning in The Sun of Hashim Abedi, it's an exclusive as I understand it. So he's the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber. He was convicted and given a sentence of 55 years for aiding and abetting his brother for blowing up Manchester Arena and killing 22 people. He's also the individual that, whilst in prison, has thrown boiling water over prison officers and scalded them, and cut prison officers, without putting too fine a point on it, stabbed prison officers, one of whom nearly lost their life. He has been rewarded, and yes, I'm going to use that word because it's operative and it's appropriate. He's been rewarded by being given more prison benefits, including, here's the little list, Freeview television, more money for his phone card, and apparently food privileges and other things. Shouldn't prison be for punishing people, particularly abhorrent terrorist individuals like this? Instead, he attacks prison officers and they give him a few more telly channels.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And again, look, it goes back to the previous story where you've seen people who illegally come to the country who are waving at us and laughing at us and blowing kisses at us, the UK taxpayer, who pick up that bill. You've now got prison officers who have been attacked by this man, who have to go to work every day to deal with him and the likes of, who put their lives at risk every day, clearly, given what's happened to some of their colleagues at the hands of this man. They now have to deal with him as if he's behaved himself on good behaviour. He's been re-given these privileges, as you say.
And Charlie, so you were a Conservative advisor for some time, obviously when the Conservatives were in government. I don't suppose this would be any different, actually, if we still had a Conservative government, I suspect, because I guess these decisions in terms of how we deal with Hashim Abedi, so despite his abhorrent and disgraceful criminal behaviour, we continue just to fluff his pillow and bring him in a cup of Ovaltine every night just to make sure that he's okay. I mean, goodness knows what else. These decisions, where do you think they're made? Are they made at prisoner governor level? Is that the person at Belmarsh that's responsible for this outrageous approach? Or does it go higher than that?
Yeah, no, it would be at the prison, and as a lot of things often are, because central government, for all the power that people think that it wields, it can't micromanage everything. But what you can do is, if you'd heard about this story, if you're in the Justice Department today, if you're the Secretary of State for the Justice, or if you're the Prisons Minister and you've read about this story, you would be, I would have hoped and would have thought, straight on the phone to the governor to say, I want to know exactly what's happened here. Why on earth has this been allowed to happen? Because I don't think that will sit well with the public, and I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's right. And you have to put pressure and ask the right questions, difficult questions of that prison to hold those individuals to account. Now, I can't see any reason why, on the back of what this chap has done, not just to end up in bars, but what he's done behind bars, should be given these privileges back.
Charlie, do you think Yvette Cooper, as our Home Secretary, useless as she is, should stand up and make a statement? I mean, she can't make a statement in the House of Commons because they're in recess, but, you know, maybe she can come back from her holiday, wherever she is with Ed Balls, and make a statement where she demands of the Belmarsh prison governor that this person is put in solitary confinement where he damn well belongs.
Yeah, I think that's right, because, as I say, you know, well, first of all, on Yvette Cooper, what is so shocking and disappointing is that she was chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee previously, when Labour were in opposition. She's been the shadow Home Secretary for about 4 or 5 years. You would have thought she would have had a plan in all of that time to stop all of the things that we've been talking about this morning, but haven't seen nor heard sight of it. That's the first point. And the second and final one is, you know, we're getting to that boiling point. We are getting to that breaking point. As I say, you know, it only takes 1 or 2 more stories like this, where you have a bad actor, a foreign national that's come into the country, whether it's legally or not, that has committed certain crimes of magnitude that we will all be repelled by, but yet seem to be rewarded and seem to have the privileges over and above everyone else in this country who works hard, gets up every morning, does the right thing, saves, scrimps and saves for their future, for their families. That is being overridden by people that come into this country illegally and seem to be able to jump the queue and get access to all kinds of privileges. That is not right, that is not fair, that is not British, and it should take a Home Secretary or the Prime Minister, who, regardless of the summer holiday or not, to get on top of this issue before it becomes a summer that, you know, as I say, is a breaking point for Britain.
Well, and actually there's a police watchdog statement over the last 24 hours that says that they are concerned that there could yet again be summer riots. Now, of course, we wouldn't encourage that. We wouldn't suggest that. We certainly wouldn't want to be seen to be inciting that. But when it comes to protest, legitimate, peaceful protests on the streets of Britain, given the state of this country, and actually not just with regard to migration, illegal migration, the crimes committed by those illegal migrants, the economic effect of those illegal migrants, but also the economy, crime generally, you know, the state of Britain in every respect, you know, this lurch towards net zero, which we'll come back to later on because we're going to be doing a piece on it soon in terms of the cost of net zero and Ed Miliband's mad, ravenous approach to trying to make us all live on, I don't know, what, fairy farts and, you know, whatever. I mean, there's a lot to protest about, frankly, isn't there? An awful lot to protest about. It's very, very depressing. And I hate to be the bearer of this, Charlie, really, and I know we are as a channel, but this has to be spoken about, because guess what? The mainstream media are probably at this very moment on Sky and the BBC telling the 4 or 5 people that watch those channels, frankly, the people that are causing trouble at the Barbican Hotel and in Canary Wharf and in Manchester and Newcastle, of course, they're not concerned mums from Epping, they're not concerned dads from Tower Hamlets, they are the far right. No doubt that is occurring as we speak, Charlie.
Yeah, and look, you know, that would be wrong, because that is not what is reflected on the ground. And, you know, people have access, as you said earlier on, to social media sites. There's so much more media out there for people to be able to make up their own mind and to see what is actually happening rather than rely on big corporations to report it. I mean, I'm not going to defend the mainstream media or anyone else, but, you know, of course there will be within the whole spectrum of our society an element of the far right who are agitators, just as there are these who are on the far left.
But that's not what's instigated these protests. I mean, look, who knows? The far right may well, you know, pop over in an Uber and, you know, try and cause trouble because there's an opportunity to do so. But the point is 99% of the people at these protests across Britain are simply concerned residents of this country. They're concerned in terms of the way that this country is being managed and run, the hand cart to hell that we are on our way to, and so on. And you know, the frustration is, of course, that because of Keir Starmer's track record in this regard, he's going to, because it's very politically inconvenient for him to do otherwise, he's going to try and label everybody as an agitator on the right, a Tommy Robinson supporter, and so on. And that's simply not right. And I would argue that, look, Keir Starmer, if you're going to start censoring people for so-called misinformation via various bits of legislation that you've sought to put in place over the last weeks and months, well, then you might want to be very careful yourself what you say with regard to that being misinformation. Charlie, we've got to go now because we've got to go to another break. And then we've got the head-to-head, which is going to be great fun because it's Chloe Dobbs and Jim Dale. Back after this. Charlie, thanks as ever, mate. Speak to you soon. We're going to take a break. Back after this.
Age males and sexually active males, might I add, are coming over to our country having no idea of either our laws or our culture.
And it must be like bizarre for them because I get it because they must see the way that we dress and the way that we women have a voice and it must be bizarre for them. But the point is that enough is enough now.
Darling, I am making no excuses for these people. No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So I'm laughing because one of the producers here has just said, OK, here we go, buckle up, what could possibly go wrong? Because we've got Chloe Dobbs and Jim Dale in the studio with me together. It's like, I don't know, the universe is just kind of, just made a little movement, I think. Jim, you and I have a bit of history, it's fair to say, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Particularly on X.
Good morning, first of all. And thank you for the invite, Dean, your producer, etc. I love it. I love it. The fact that I'm actually here because there is another place across town that don't like me anymore because...
What? Yeah, we love you. We love your sensible views.
Well, look, it's a debate. You want a debate, don't you?
We do.
You want two sides of the coin.
Firstly, it's balanced. Secondly,
of course.
Look, we aim to inform and opinionate, but also entertain. I think this will be entertaining. Chloe, welcome.
Thank you.
We are fellow panellists, of course. Plank of the week.
It's great to see you in the presenting seat.
Yeah, I know. Well, do you know what she just said to me? She said, "Have you done this before?" How fun is that? Yes, I've done it before, Chloe. Thank you very much. But obviously, it doesn't show to Chloe Dobbs. Right, guys. So I am a mere chairman in the next few minutes. I'm just, I'm hardly going to say a word, Jim. I'm afraid
sure.
I'm going to disappoint you.
Well, let's see what the questions are, and we'll go from there.
Here we go. So
loaded questions, I reckon.
There should be. Hang on. Shouldn't there be a jingle for this? There should be a jingle for this. There should be a jingle. I think some kind of head-to-head, some boxing analogy or something.
The bell at the start of the boxing ring.
Yes, because even though they're sitting the wrong side, you've got Jim. I think it's fair to say, Jim, you're of a left-wing persuasion.
Yeah, I would describe myself as centre-left.
Would you?
More or less the same as...
Most people would say you're a bit more left than that. But anyway.
No, I'm not, actually. As you'll find out if we start to talk about...
Where is that Overton window these days? And Chloe, I think it's fair to say... Oh, there it is. There he's found the bell. Ding, ding, round one. Chloe Dobbs on the right a little bit?
Yeah.
Centre-right.
I'm a reform supporter.
Wow.
But as we've just been discussing on the way in, we've both got our criticisms of certain policies and things they say.
So shall we kick off with apparently there's a heatwave forecast, Jim, but I would say
I'm the right person for this.
You are, because you're a weather guy. So this headline is heatwave forecasters new weather maps show 6-day 37-degree scorcher hitting Britain in weeks. I would put it to you, Jim, that that's just summer.
I would put it to you that that might be a little bit of an exaggeration in terms of the headline. But let me...
you would say that the heatwave thing is an exaggeration?
No, well,
you would say
the scorcher, the 6-day thing and all the rest of it. And the reason why, I was up at, 4:30 this morning and I was doing my usual job. And I will tell you that at the moment, we've got to look at Storm Floris first, that comes tonight for Scotland, principally tonight and through tomorrow. And then we've got to wait a week of mundane-ish type weather. This time next week, I think the heat starts to grow. Yeah, so there's the heat wave potentially starting.
But it's August.
Yeah. But nobody's suggesting anything about climate change within that.
So
if that's what you're hinting
at. What you're
at.
saying is climate change isn't a problem, Jim.
Who's saying that?
That's what you're just saying.
I'm not. No. Let's put it into context.
I'm teasing him, Chloe.
Of course he is. Summer does produce heat waves occasionally, not as many.
Occasionally? The whole summer should be a heat wave.
No, not as many as we've seen this summer, since the spring particularly, the dry spring, the sunny spring, the record temperatures that we've seen, the record sunshine, the dryness, etc. Maybe a little bit the other side of the coin for the last week or two. We'll go back to being, especially southern England, by next... My words, if you're sitting here next week, maybe you are, but it'll be a lot hotter than it will be today. Let me put it that way.
Good,
and that could stretch on a little bit.
Because right now it seems seasonally cold, actually. Chloe, are you thinking of jetting off to the Maldives very quickly before it's submerged under 25 metres of water, which I think is probably something that Jim forecast a few years ago?
No, I'd love to go on holiday. I'm glad we're going to get somewhat of a holiday by having a heat wave here, but I have a dog that seems to keep me stuck in this country.
Oh, dear.
It's very hard to find people who are willing to put up with him and take care of him. So I won't be off to the Maldives, but if I get to go one day, hopefully it won't be underwater.
I don't think it will be. I think many people have forecast
yeah,
such,
but I mean, just on this story, I think there's often an oversimplification whenever there is a big story about the weather, some dramatic event. There's been a wildfire somewhere, or there's been a big heat wave. In that, people will say, "Oh, this is just because of climate change," or some people will say the complete opposite and say, "Oh, climate change doesn't exist, it's just summer." When actually, when it comes to most events, be it a wildfire or a heat wave, there are a multitude of different factors, not just one. And you just pit people against each other.
I'll answer the arson question, because that's often put up by people who are man-made climate deniers.
But you're saying arson's not a thing in wildfires, because it doesn't
matter how it actually starts.
Well, doesn't it?
No, it does not. Whether it's arson, whether it's a lightning strike, whether it's sun on a bottle that shines on, it's the underlying conditions. And if you've got underlying conditions that are as dry as a bone, and then you get the wind coming along with it, etc., that's the thing that's spread. Ask the people in Los Angeles if they believe in man-made climate change. Ask the people in La Nina in Hawaii if they believe in climate change. When it happens to you, know about it.
So 30 years ago, you're saying that the LA hills were wet?
Wetter than they have been. They went through a period of intense rain followed by intense drought, more or less as we're seeing a little bit of now in this country, not to that extreme. That's the sort of underlying conditions. So you get the growth, then you get the dryness, then you get the fire. And it matters not how it starts, it's what the underlying conditions are. And we're seeing that, look, we're seeing that in Greece, we're seeing it in Turkey, we're seeing it in Portugal today, in the southern half.
But there were wildfires and other similar events thousands of years ago.
That isn't to say that wildfires never existed. The fact remains is they are becoming a more commonplace and more so...
Because people are setting the fires?
Not because they're setting the fires. No, well, as I said to you, it could be a lightning strike. It could be sunshine on a discarded bottle. There's many reasons for those things. Chloe? Campfires and things like this. That's how they all start.
So if somebody commits an arson attack, if there were no climate change, no global warming, there may still, of course, be a fire. right? But whatever the other conditions are, so how dry is the greenery there, if there's any left, how hot are the conditions, all of these sorts of things, right, will affect how fast and how far that fire spreads.
Or the incompetence of the LA fire authorities, of course, if we're talking about LA in particular.
Exactly, and that comes into it as well. So, I mean, when it comes to fires, there are so many different things that come into it, and I think that on both sides there is massive oversimplification. As I said, you'll have one side say this is all because of climate change, but quite rightly that disillusions people and annoys them and puts people off supporting the green argument, because they think, oh, these people are idiots. They're saying a fire that was started by us and was completely down to climate change. But then on the other side, people will say, oh, this has nothing to do with climate change whatsoever.
I know we could do climate change all day, I know, but we need to move on to something else. But it is related. This is a story today that Ed Miliband, who we all love and respect as a climate freak, I think is the word I'm looking for, refuses to publish details of a green energy deal with China. Now, this is consequential to him and others within his circle, going to China to seemingly do a deal over not just wind energy and solar energy, but also battery storage and so on. It looks like it's a commercial deal whereby China will be buying in by way of some investment into this madcap, in my opinion, plan of Ed Miliband's to take us to 100% sustainability over the next, 3 weeks or whatever he intends to do. But the big question here is, if this is such a great deal for Britain, both environmentally and financially, why is he keeping it a secret, Jim?
I don't know that he is, to be honest with you, because
the report
the report in the Telegraph, is it, or the Mail right-wing press saying the same thing.
Just because it's right-wing press doesn't mean it's not true.
Well, normally it isn't. They exaggerate stuff.
I think there's more left-wing media outlets than right.
There isn't. But anyway, look, they put words in
Sky,
they
BBC,
put words,
Channel 4, ITV.
Yeah. I don't think so. Anyway, that's a different. That's different subject.
So why is he keeping it secret?
Look,
why not come back from China? Why not come back from Beijing and say, this is a fantastic deal, look what a brilliant thing that I've achieved, it's great financially, it's great sustainably.
And maybe,
why is he not doing that?
Maybe he will, in due course, when it's signed, sealed and delivered. There is nothing wrong with UK PLC going to other countries, doing deals as what happened with Starmer in India, for example, and coming back and then blowing.
But the same team have come back from other countries and announced the deals, Chloe.
I think that we are being treated, the electorate, as if we don't deserve to know what's going on because we're too dumb to know, and they don't want to deal with the backlash that they're going to face. I mean, I know it's a completely different topic, but we've had that whole story with the Afghan data leak, and that very much showed to the public. We have people running this country who think you don't deserve to know what is being done with your taxpayer money. You don't deserve to know how this country is being run.
Maybe it's not just that they think
outcry.
Not just that they think we're stupid, it's just that they've got something to hide, which is they know that the reality would not stand the test of scrutiny.
Shall we wait until we actually see what it is?
Well, it doesn't look like we're going
to. It's going. Well, I think we are, because it's not just going to happen and suddenly we got whatever we've got from China and China are getting whatever.
But why has he published news and information related to other deals with other countries? China specifically, he's keeping to himself.
He knows it's controversial and he doesn't want the backlash.
He
doesn't want the backlash, and there are huge concerns from places like MI5, the security services, about potentially
negotiation. Have you ever compromised negotiation?
The deals that I understand that during the negotiation phase.
Just be patient, because all that's happening at the moment is a big stirring pot's going on from the right-wing press that is basically saying, oh, he's keeping it secret, he's eyeing away.
We can't be patient, Jim, because people like you tell us that the world's ending because of climate change.
No, I don't say that. I thought you were the chairman, not part of the argument. Come on.
I can't help jumping in.
No, you cannot.
Because we're here to entertain as well as to
I know, but come on. Be a neutral chairman rather than feed the garbage that you're doing to me. Look,
so why is he keeping it a secret if it's that great?
Because
do you know why? And I think Chloe's absolutely hit the nail on the head. Is because he knows that there's an element to this that probably threatens our national security. A bit like, do you remember under the reign of Theresa May, which I know we all try and forget, when it came to China being responsible for our nuclear power stations in the future?
I think you'll find that this government has already said many, many times that national security is their #1 priority.
Why are we doing
so they will
China?
not
Really?
because everybody does deal with China. Even Trump does deal. Look what Trump's doing.
National security, except when it comes to the borders.
Not letting the cat out of the bag. Look how Trump
last word from you.
We've literally had a story recently saying MPs are having to be warned to be careful of what they say when they're walking around St James's Park and around Westminster, because the Chinese have hidden microphones in the bushes and whatnot to spy on people.
Do you think that's new?
No, and Chinese espionage is something that we know is prolific in this country.
As is Russian.
Why are we giving them more influence here? And we've heard that when we've got wind farms that with Chinese materials,
do we really
that
want
they're
the Chinese being able to turn off our power? I guess. Look, we've got to go to a break. This is brilliant. I knew it was going to be just like this. I'm Russell Quirk, Chloe Dobbs, Jim Dales. This is great, and we've got more of this coming up after the break. We're going to be talking about migrant hotel protests, round 2.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, welcome back. So I have the dubious honour of being the chairman of this head-to-head between Chloe Dobbs and Jim Dale. We're now going to talk about a really uncontentious subject, which is migrant hotels. I don't know if you've read the papers this morning, you two, or listened to this show over the last 2 3/4 hours, but it's somewhat contentious. So, Jim, what's your view on... Let's ask a really basic, straightforward question. Should we be allowing 25,000 undocumented illegal migrants into Britain and putting them up in 4-star hotels and allowing some of them to commit sexual offences against our public?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question, because there's a lot in there that you can.
Isn't it?
It's not a yes/no answer, to be honest with you, because what you're doing is you're looking at the far out example. In other words, somebody who commits sexual crime, for example, 4-star. They don't for the most part.
But Jim, it's not a far out example.
Make this clear.
It's not a far out example for the victims of those crimes.
Of course, it's not. But there's more crimes committed by white middle-class people of that nature.
Do you understand proportionality?
Oh, it is. Well, the fact remains is you've got examples of that, and they will be dealt with by the government, by the law, when they happen. The vast majority of those people do not commit those crimes and do not end up in 4-star hotels. This is another explosion by the right-wing press to make it as if everything is, oh, they're all turning up in 4-star hotels, taking our jobs, doing this. We know that is absolutely exaggeration.
I'm very aware that I'm chairing this, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But I think Chloe might have to say something to say about that.
I've got plenty of things to say there. So a couple of things. So first of all, I mean, I asked the question: do you understand proportionality? I mean, Afghans the figures move around a bit, but they're typically the most common group coming across on the boats. We have data showing that they are 20 times more likely to commit sexual assaults or rapes. And nobody is suggesting that every single person that comes on a boat is a rapist. Okay,
There's a propensity.
It's completely straw-manning our argument to suggest that is the case. The vast majority of them are not going to do that. Second of all, you say, oh, well, it's fine because we have police who deal with those things when it happens. I'm sure if you ask a girl who's been raped by someone who came on a boat, they're not going to say, oh, it's fine because they've been charged and convicted. They're going to say, I wish they weren't here in the first place so I didn't have to go through that trauma, okay, regardless of whether they were dealt with by the police or not. And lastly, if you bring a bunch of men and put them in a hotel where they're not able to work, they've got nothing to do, they haven't got wives and children with them to entertain them. If you've got a bunch of guys just hanging around with nothing to do all day, is it really any surprise that they're standing around on street corners looking at girls and getting up to no good and going around in gangs, you know, potentially shoplifting and whatnot? I mean, even if you took a bunch of British boys and put them in a hotel with nothing to do but to just be boys in gangs all day, they get up to no good.
I think we actually see that in the UK in various towns and cities, that you see various people of different ethnic backgrounds, white English particularly sometimes, you know, and that's just the nature of life. And we talk about Afghans, by the way, you know perfectly well.
The nature of life is
the
you
Afghan
just should accept that you're going to get raped and sexually assaulted, is it?
We in America did them down when the Taliban took over. You know that. So there is,
but there's no excuse for them to come over here and rape people.
But as I said, that's and as already been said by Chloe, it's a small minority.
But do you take Chloe's point that there's a propensity issue, a proportionality issue here, whereby people from certain countries, and I have to say that they often come from a Muslim background because of the way that they see women as a lower grade of life in society.
Yeah, there may well be an element, but we go back to the very beginning of all this.
So you accept that there's a propensity for some people from some countries to commit crime more than the native population of Britain?
Potentially, yes.
And a lot
why
should we allow it then? Why should we allow it?
Well, now you come to the brunt of it.
Why should we?
How do we stop it? How do we stop it?
How do we stop
the question.
What? The criminality of the people being here in the first place?
Farage and Co have got zero answers. All they do is shout with big microphones or big, what do you call it? These things and loudspeakers. They've got no answer to this. It's not a case. Look. We go back to the weather. We go back to the weather. The reason why.
We need to get to the nub, right? So you said, what do we do something about this? And so, to me, the answer is not to have these people coming in the first place, and not to have two-tier policing justice. Well, no, I thought you were going to give me the solution.
Yeah, look, the solution is being put together by this government in terms of step by step, reducing reducing the amount of immigrants in hotels. The process,
by putting them into private rented accommodation and evicting people. Great solution.
One thing that did not happen during the Tory years, the miserable 14 years of Tory years, is that they did not process those people in the numbers that they should have processed them, and therefore there was always a massive over. Well,
Jim,
processing means
processing people that are here illegally, whether they commit crimes or not, is not the answer, because then they're already here and have that propensity to commit crime. Processing, which is what Yvette Cooper has said over the last 24 hours, we're now going to fast track, in other words, to give amnesty to 90,000
because you have to, according to
stop them coming in the first place.
Because the law of the law of the world basically says you cannot do this.
Jim,
Chloe, last word. Then we've got to go to a break, then we're going to carry this on.
We can argue whether the solution is we turn back the boats or we get harder with the French, but there are very, very basic things that, as at least a starting point, that we can do to reduce the incentive to come here. So first of all, how about we don't give them a fancy hotel to stay in, a 4-star hotel in Canary Wharf, central London?
You're exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating. That hotel's there. We know there are migrants being raised there. We know it's a 4-star
we are
hotel.
going to a break, and I'm delighted to announce that we're going to carry this on after the break. This is Talk Breakfast. We're having a ding-dong. Ready for round 3 after this.
all this expenditure that this government goes out and says, you know, we're going to give this to Gaza, we're going to give this to the Palestine. Everything that this government spends comes out of my pocket. But I'm not allowed to have a say anymore.
So
and
true.
This is what
So
this
true.
government is trying to do. The censorship that's going on now is just unbelievable. I can't criticise Labour. What's going to happen at PMQs on a Wednesday if we can't criticise?
These fighting age males and sexually active males, might I add, are coming over to our country having no idea of either our laws or our culture.
And it must be like bizarre for them, because I get it, because they must see the way that we dress and the way that we women have a voice, and it must be bizarre for them. But the point is that enough is enough now.
Darling, I am making no excuses for these people. No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, here we go, 7 minutes to 9. I'm on for another hour. Peter Caldwell after this. I'm still joined, I'm delighted to say, by Chloe Dobbs and Jim Dale. And there's an argument or two happening, it seems. What are we now, Dave? Round 3, I think we are now. Let's carry on talking about the migrant crisis, because it is definitely the topic of the day. The heckles are up across Britain, I think it's fair to say, in terms of these migrant hotels that are everywhere, and people across Britain that live in Newcastle, various parts of London, Norfolk, Manchester and so on, protesting. And in fairness, not just because of the migrants being here, not just protesting because of the migrant hotels per se, but because, of course, when they learn of alleged criminality by the occupants of those hotels. Now, a lot of these migrants that we're talking about today that have been alleged to have committed criminality have been charged, so including 2 Afghanis up in Warwickshire who have been charged with the alleged rape of a 12-year-old. So not convicted, innocent till proven guilty, the same as the individual in the Bell Hotel in Epping who has been charged with 3 sexual offences. But I don't think we can be surprised, Jim, can we, when local people in Epping, in Canary Wharf, in the Barbican, when they hear these things, particularly when some of these people are then convicted, that they don't feel safe in their own streets anymore.
There is an element of disquiet, obviously, if people move into an hotel near you and you don't want them there for whatever reason. There isn't a lot for them to do.
I think good reason.
For whatever reason, yeah.
You don't think it's good reason?
Yeah, but, well, let's make something clear.
Can you say it's good reason?
It's a fair... It depends how you're protesting, by the way. You
protesting about the alleged criminality of migrants in
hotels. In terms of kicking police fans with a flag on your back, etc. These people who wave flags for the reason... You know where they're coming from.
Does that apply to Palestinian flags as well as the...
It applies to the lot, to be frank with you. You don't need that. You don't need... Look, we're talking about Hamas, we're talking about...
You're always going to have some idiots, but I think we can agree the vast majority of people going to these hotels are people who are... protesting peacefully. A lot of them are people who are not even that political. They're just mums and dads who are worried for their kids.
The pictures that you see on TV doesn't look like the minority to me.
Yeah, because the press always pick the video that is the most,
Because of the left-wing bias.
You mean the male, the Telegraph?
No, but of course it's going to get more clicks, a video of someone throwing a brick at a policeman than someone just peacefully protesting, holding a sign saying "Save our girl."
That's the extremes, isn't it?
Answer me this. Why yesterday were the protesters across the country not masked, but the Antifa counter-protesters, the so-called refugees are welcome, smash the far right, they were all masked. Why? Why are the left masked?
They shouldn't be masked.
Why are they?
As simple as that. I've got no idea, because I wouldn't be joining them anyway. I don't join
the dots?
Those type of protests, both on the far right
join the dots
and the far
because they're up to no good, and they are antagonists, anarchists, and
and the idiots on the very far right, as we know, don't. Some mask themselves.
There's no evidence of the far right, but there is evidence of the far left.
Across their faces, the Union Jack or the
over the last 24 hours, there's no evidence of the far right whatsoever, but there is evidence of the far left being bussed in to cause trouble.
Did we not see that in Stockport a year ago? Did we not see the far right loons You know, that idiot who was chastising the police.
There are idiots on both sides.
Yeah.
I am of the opinion that this is one of the least racist countries in the world, but you will. In any country, you will have some people who are genuine racists, genuinely bad people, and some of those may turn up to what is a peaceful protest, mostly of people who are not racist at all and are just worried about things like the safety of women and girls and are upset that a group that have just turned up illegally are getting better treatment than them, right? There are going to be a few idiots involved. We can all agree with that, right? But the vast majority of people who are on these protests are, as I said, a lot of them are just mums and dads who are genuinely concerned. I mean, for example, in Epping, right, you've had parents, but before the individual there from the hotel was even charged and we had the police get involved, we had parents having to set up parent WhatsApp chats to monitor and tell people, oh, be careful, so-and-so's on the street preying on the young girls as they're walking past. Mums and dads shouldn't have to put up with that if they previously lived in a nice, safe area.
OK, so why are they turning up at the hotels in the first place? If they hear something, because they can equally hear something about, say, a white middle-class guy who raped somebody or did something over that side. Do they hang about that hotel or that house?
No, because of the propensity.
Because the focus from the media is on this. This is why it happens. It's exploded and exaggerated. No. And if we take the extremes of both the far left and the far right out of it, then legitimate, peaceful protest is available to everybody and should not be knocked, whatever it is. It's the problem that we've got here is the extremists and particularly on both sides that make this an ugly conversation, and it is exaggerated and pushed because the focus is very, very heavy on what you've been mentioning today, Russell, in these particular cases. That's why take away the extremists and we've got a chance.
Got a minute, Chloe.
Look, I mean, we've said there are going to be extremists on both sides, but I think the thing we really need to ask for are the people who are peacefully protesting, do they have legitimate reasons to do so? And I think they absolutely do. And I think that it's quite ironic and hypocritical that you've got Stand Up to Racism going there.
What should we do with them? What should we do?
Hang on. You've got Stand Up to Racism protesting there when actually you're less likely to have a racist society if people are treated equally. You're going to create resentment and genuine racism in society over time if you have one group of people being treated ahead of everyone else, put in 4-star hotels, healthcare faster than us,
this 4-star hotel garbage. Yeah, OK.
Well, it's not garbage, they're there.
It is a 4-star hotel. I haven't made that
call it a day. We've got to go. We've got 6 seconds, 5 seconds. That was a great debate. I'm Russell Quirk. This is Talk Breakfast, back after the news. Thank you, guys.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah, a rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
OK.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as a family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk Breakfast. I'm Russell Quirk, in for Alex Phillips. In an hour's time, it will be Peter Cardwell, as it always is, at 10 o'clock on a Saturday and Sunday morning. We're going to speak to Ryan Saby in a second from The Sun, a right riveting read. Remember when they used to say that? Why don't they get rid of that strapline? I think it's a great strapline. Anyway, before we get to Ryan, let's just read you out some of the text messages that we've had over the last couple of hours or so. There have been loads, so thank you very much indeed. If you want to get involved by way of sending your own text message in to 87222 plus the word talk, please do so. Sharon says, the state of Britain. I am embarrassed to be British. Short and sweet. Yeah, I guess when you think about that Coinbase video that we showed earlier, maybe we'll have time to show that a bit later on. We've now got companies in the United States parodying the state of Britain in terms of the state of our infrastructure, our society, our economy, inflation, and so on. It's getting to the stage where, yes, we are literally becoming a global laughingstock. We have definitely, thanks to our hapless politicians, particularly over the last 12 months, in my opinion, taken the great out of Great Britain. We need to restore it, don't we? Honestly, we need to do that. And I like to think that here at Talk, we're doing our little bit to try and make that happen. Let me know what you would do. 0344 499 1000. Mark May says, what planet is Jim Dale on? The guy is living in a fantasy world, denying that immigrants are placed in hotels. Yes, he was tied himself up in a few knots there. And normally, as you know, because I've confronted Jim Dale on this station face to face when I've been a panellist and he's been a panellist on many occasions. We also have many sparring fights on X where we vehemently disagree with each other. And it gets quite animated, frankly. I think he believes genuinely in what he says when it comes in particular to matters of a climate subject. But of course, yes, he's, in my opinion, simply wrong. Joel says people are not only being ignored, to add insult to injury, they are being gaslit. Actually, Joel, I mean, not just gaslit. I don't know if there's an extension of being gaslit. What's something that's even more gaslit than being gaslit? I don't know. Maybe answers on a postcard by text, 87222 and the word talk. We are being gaslit, I mean, incredibly so, and on a greater and more sustained and more exaggerated basis than I think even the corridors of spin that was the likes of Alistair Campbell in the days of Tony Blair. I mean, this spin in terms of constant stuff on X from the Labour government as to how well they're doing and how everything's fine. I mean, wow, it really is not. But luckily, we've only got 3.5 to 4 years of this government to go. Oh my goodness. Right, let's talk to Ryan Saby, because he'll have a lot to say, no doubt, on various things that are in his wonderful newspaper this morning. Ryan, welcome. How are you?
Good morning, Russell. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. You've broken a few exclusives, a few scoops. I think you've got the front page we'll talk about in a minute. But well, let's talk first of all about the woke class, this Angela Rayner story in terms of the department that she runs, spending thousands of pounds on taxpayers' cash on, wait for it, diversity training. I mean, seriously, how much is she spending? 50,000.
Yeah, no, my colleague Kate Ferguson, she's been delving into how much money has been spent by Angela Rayner's department. And it seems like the housing department, the overall spend seems to be about £47,000. But 5,000 of that was given to a firm to advise on the dangers of banter at work. Now, I think there should be a clear distinction between normal sort of banter and chat amongst workplaces and then that gets worse. So, but I think if they're actually trying to police the banter or general conversation in the workplace, that sort of does raise a few questions. And but it does seem beggars belief that lots of money again is being spent on this. And there's also
it's socialists spending other people's money, as we referred to earlier on. I mean, it would be bad enough if this was just anti-banter training within the housing department. Within Whitehall. But of course what we know is coming next, Ryan, of course, is the Workers' Rights Act, which is effectively going to ban banter at work. And even if you work in a pub, your boss, your landlord, is going to be prevented, or is going to be compelled to prevent banter amongst customers that might be overheard by bar staff. I mean, this is through the looking glass stuff, truly, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the issues with, particularly with the employment rights legislation that's going round, I speak to lots of businesses and lots of business groups every week, and one of the key things that they try to get across is just how much sort of red tape that will just be that they'll be strangled in by this new legislation. The government's own impact assessment from this legislation is that it will cost businesses in the region of £5 billion. I mean, this is staggering amount.
But that's on top of the £20 billion that's been levied upon them by Rachel Reeve's budget in November by way of a national insurance increase. That's 20 billion plus 5 billion. No wonder we've got 200,000 more people out of work than we had this time last year. No wonder we've got 16,000 employers and millionaires leaving the country this year. No wonder we've now got less billionaires in this country than we had 12 months ago. I mean, this government are truly cloth-eared, but I guess it's fair to say this is a matter of ideology, isn't it? This is a government... I was going to say something inappropriate then, but this is the government, because it's very tempting to do that. This is a government living out its sixth form politics fantasies as a government, which is an entirely dangerous and inappropriate thing to do.
Yeah, one thing that I would say on that as well is that you say cloth-eared. It's quite interesting, because what you hear is from business is that government and ministers are talking to business. They are listening to them. They just get the impression they're not really taking on board what they're saying and actually putting their words.
So they're just going through an exercise, you mean? They're just paying lip service to that communication.
I feel like lots of business groups feel that that's the way. And I think with the employment rights package that's going through, as you just mentioned, there was always this instance where like the Labour were always going to put something like that in their manifesto. But when it came to government, we'd have some senior people in government say, hang on a minute, this needs to be watered down a little bit, because if you've got a smaller business or even a medium-sized business, that sort of choking them with red tape is just not going to be good. And it's one of the key things that comes out there. Big complaints. They always talk about the national insurance rise, but they talk about the 2-year rollout that's going to be happening with this employment rights package. Is going to be from about the autumn when the legislation is passed for the next 2 years. It's really going to affect them. And I think at some point they expect those pro-business ministers in government, or supposed pro-business ministers in government, those who engage with them, to actually stand up for them and actually say, come on, we need to calm this down, we need to water this down. But at the moment, we just haven't seen anything.
Well, yes, we need to see some pragmatism and an understanding of unintended consequences, I think, Ryan. Also, Kate Ferguson, your colleague, has also written about doctors. Doctors, you remember those people that we thought actually had been put through the process of becoming qualified to become doctors, to look after us, to make sure that we all are well and get better when we're ill. Well, a lot of them want to go on strike for another 29% pay rise, of course. But turns out, as you guys are revealing at The Sun this morning, that not every doctor's happy.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting, actually. It seems like around 1 in 3 of the junior doctors didn't, or only 1 in 3 actually joined those process in the past week. And I think it just shows where public opinion is at the moment. I think there's a couple of things going on here. You've got Wes Streeting, the health secretary, who's saying junior doctors, resident doctors, there just isn't the money. So you can scream and shout as much as you want for another 20+% pay rise on top of the 20+% pay rise you had last year. That's just not happening. There'll be, we can talk about conditions, we can talk about rotas, we can talk about maybe help when it comes to taking exams or courses, but when it actually comes to the the cash. There just isn't the money there.
Well, you say that,
wonder...
Ryan, but sorry, knowing the Labour government as we do in terms of their pirouetting by way of U-turns on a rather frequent basis, how long do you think? In fact, how many days will it be before Wes Streeting backs down and gives in to the doctors and gives them their 29%, despite the fact that, as you rightly point out, and it's great research this morning, despite the fact that, as I think Kate's calling them, the hard-left BMA, the British Medical Association, who effectively are extreme, they're left-wing to the extreme, they, of course, are trying to encourage strikes, maybe through ideology, being a bit anarchic rather than it just being about money. Yeah, he's going to give in, isn't he?
Well, interesting you say that, because I just wonder whether it always feels like the word around Westminster is Wes Streeting is an extremely ambitious politician, and you wonder where his career will end up in terms of how high he will get in terms of in public office.
Do you think this is a test of that? Right.
Well, I think, mate, I think you just wonder whether he's actually putting his foot down because he realises he has to stand up to those junior doctors if he's got any ambitions to go any further. But there was some interesting piece yesterday about all those people who have been health secretary who also had ambitions for being prime minister or leader of their party, and the health department just cut that short. You look at Ken Clarke, you look at Jeremy Hunt, Andy Burnham, who was there as well. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. But I think the one thing that Wes has got on his side is the fact that public opinion seems to have shifted against those resident doctors, those junior doctors.
But do you think that will make any difference to the doctors? I mean, the BMA are so hardline, they won't care about opinion. They're not elected. They still get their money regardless from their members. So I think individual doctors are clearly, based on your story here, are very concerned about public perception. You know, they don't want people in hospitals, you know, turning their backs on them, and maybe there will be a kind of an outcry against doctors on the basis of them striking and being seen to be greedy, because let's not forget, some of these doctors, even though they're called junior doctors, are on well over £100,000 a year. So to have another 29% at public expense, I mean, sticks in the throat a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does. And when people, working people up and down the country see those figures, they do work hard, but there has to be, you have to take in on balance the actual cost to the. Well,
it's not justified. It's simply just not justified. But can we turn to your front page?
Yes.
Which many people may already have at home, or they may have up on their website. This is the revelation, Ryan. I cannot believe that this is so, that celebrities are alleged to do cocaine. I mean, I'd never heard of such a thing. Your front page, Strictly in particular.
Yeah, no, it seems like the BBC are taking these allegations extremely seriously.
Can I just say, sorry, Ryan, I hate to interrupt, sorry, the BBC again.
Yeah.
Again, another scandal. I mean, literally another week, another scandal. Sorry, elaborate on this, sorry.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it does seem like every week there is a scandal. We've had the Greg Wallace and MasterChef scandal. We go back to Hugh Edwards in over recent months and the last couple of years. But the BBC have got this dossier of sort of evidence as well. I think a contestant has actually brought these revelations to light in some legal papers, and now the corporation have actually brought in a legal firm, Pinsent Masons, to actually look at this and actually judge whether any sort of wrongdoing. Or what
are they going to do? Go into the toilets and with a black light, looking to see if there's any cocaine on cistern tops? I mean, what are they going to do? Or are they going to ask people, hello, Celebrity X, do you do cocaine? And expect a positive answer? I mean, this is pathetic, isn't it? And what really makes me chuckle is that, and again, this is not a dig at you guys at The Sun, but the fact that it's claimed that 2 stars of the show took cocaine. Only 2? Seriously?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of the things that this law firm are going to be looking into, and I imagine it's going to be very, very difficult to pin this down, mainly because the show takes place in the run-up to Christmas, and obviously several months ago, and I don't think we actually know. I'll have to check what year this took part. So even if it was last year, the sort of the evidence or the likelihood of getting someone to actually sort of confirm whether they took it, admit to criminality, is actually going to be very, very difficult. But the BBC have taken it upon themselves to take these allegations seriously, bring in this external law firm.
But Ryan, sorry, are they though? I mean, look, the window dressing here is obvious, isn't it? You know, we know that there's a whistleblower that's going to go to the Sun and say that there's stars taking cocaine. So therefore, we as the BBC have to be seen to do something about it. So therefore, what we do is engage a legal firm, so it looks very, very proper and serious that we're investigating it. I mean, look, from your story, it's clear here that, you know, there are celebrities and people on that show that have been saying for months, if not years, that, you know, to use some of the phraseology from your colleague here, that have you seen their pupils, says one, they are absolutely off their face. You know, this is presumably either at the live show or you know, in the run up to such, in terms of the auditions or the practicing. It seems that yet again, as is characterised by the BBC and their let's just say rather apathetic grasp of discipline in that organisation, clearly people within the BBC, within Strictly, have known for months, if not years, that there are people on that show that, to use your phraseology here as the Sun, are perpetually off their face. I mean, why have the BBC done something about this previously, not just when someone is about to whistleblow on them?
Yeah, no, it is interesting, and I think that the trouble is with the BBC and for Strictly, they've been through a whole host of scandals in recent years. I think we had the bullying allegations as well, and now we've got this. Now, I think it's important for the BBC that this investigation is not just seen as some kind of I would say talking shop or some kind of, it just gets brushed under the carpet, because you can see with...
It will do, though. Ryan, let's be honest. Yeah. It will get brushed under the carpet. I mean, no pun intended. And also we hear, again, in various newspapers, that BBC Breakfast Nana Munchetti is also under investigation for bullying too.
Yeah, no, I've been reading about that over the last...
Can I just stress, sorry, you know, not been found wanting or guilty in any way, but there have been allegations of Nana Munchetti bullying, and those allegations are now being investigated by the BBC. I mean, so I said just now, another week, another scandal. It's almost another day, another scandal at the BBC.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a difficult situation for the BBC and the Director General, Tim Davie, who's, you know, this whole slew of allegations every day or every week seems to land on his desk, and it's up to him to get to the bottom of all of it and actually work out if any, you know, wrongdoing has been done, or decide that he walks away, or the senior bosses in the BBC walk away because they haven't got to grips with situations.
I have definitely had this conversation on Plank of the Week, a new one out yesterday, by the way, on YouTube, incidentally, which I'm on. I might even have won it. Anyway, yes, look, this is one thing after another, and I've called for and said frequently, as I say, including on shows like Plank of the Week, that Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, ultimately is culpable because he is at the head of the organisation. He must not resign, he must be fired, Ryan, surely. I mean, maybe the Sun can start a campaign to have the £700,000 a year Director General of the BBC fired on the basis of his incompetence. I mean, he is overseeing and has overseen for months, if not years, scandal after scandal after scandal. If this was ITV, Channel 4, you know, or wherever, I guess it would be a matter for them. But this, of course, is a publicly funded broadcaster that, hilariously, of course, was set up for the good of the public. I'm not seeing much of that currently.
Yeah, and I think it'll be up to that BBC board to make that decision. But again, there have been, you know, one controversy we haven't mentioned yet is that as what happened at Glastonbury. I mean, that was, you know, I think the BBC...
Bob Villan and his hate speech. And Tim Davie apparently sat there quaffing Prosecco while it happened and allowed that particular performance to stay on iPlayer for a further 5 hours. No comment from him, no resignation, no sacking. Is the BBC, honestly, yes or no answer on, is the BBC really fit for purpose?
I think there's, you know, in terms...
Come on, don't get off the fence. Yes or no, is it fit for purpose?
I think what this does do, it brings into question about the, you know, the actual merits of having the licence fee, and, you know, in its current guise. I think over the next, you know, 5-10 years or so, I think we'll see a massive overhaul of that BBC licence fee.
But will we though? Where's that? I mean, there's no pressure by the looks of it from politicians, the whoever the Secretary of State for Media and Sport is that looks after that particular element in terms of being responsible for the BBC. We don't see anything or hear anything. There's no leaks. There's no one holding them to account. And of course, the BBC itself, particularly Tim Davie, there's no accountability because they're a public organisation. So, there's no commercial adverts to have to, justify their conduct to the advertisers for. I mean, they can literally do what they want, clearly unabated, and that's exactly what's happening. So my answer to the question, and I understand why you might want to be a little bit cautious in answering such a direct question, Ryan, but to me it's obvious that the BBC is no longer fit for purpose, whether people on Strictly Come Dancing are snorting coke or not.
Yeah, no, I think as well people get annoyed every time we see the amount of money that the presenters get paid, whether it's top sports presenters on over £1 million or radio presenters on £500,000. And I think they just want to make sure that they get a good service and value for money. But you can see, I think there's a charter renewal or there's some sort of interim. There's actually a government review going into the BBC at the moment, and I think we'll just have to wait and see what comes of that. But I think looking at the licence fee is one such thing, whether it's partly public funded, whether it's partly paid for by subscription. I think there's a premium service. Shows that have been mentioned before, like Strictly, come under that premium service, and you pay a little bit extra for that. I think it will just be interesting to see how that works.
Talking of salaries, I've just Googled because I think it's interesting and people might want to know, and again because it's public money, because of course it's and I did famously fall out with Vanessa Feltz on this channel about this very subject when I suggested to her in this studio actually a couple of years back that the BBC licence fee is a tax. She didn't seem to agree with me, but it is. So therefore I think it's a matter of public interest in terms of what Tess Daly and Claudia Winkleman earn. And just a quick Google shows that they earn about £150,000 each for Strictly. I think they earn more than that because they do other things in terms of other shows. That's not bad for one day a week, 15, 16 weeks a year, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I'm not going to get it. When it comes to television, my wife works in television, so...
Mate, I'm sorry. I'm really putting you on the spot. You'll never get an interview. You'll never get an interview with anyone on the BBC ever again.
I know she recently did 3 hours of what appeared on television. She spent 15 months working on it, so... yeah, look,
well, I'm sure whatever your wife's paid, it's completely and utterly justified. But I'd suggest that maybe Tess Daly and the other one.
They're big salaries, and they have to be justified, and that they have to be published. And the people can make a decision on whether they pay for the license fee or they just they don't pay it. And that's why I think the argument goes into it. Does it move towards some sort of Netflix style subscription service?
Yeah, but Ryan, I'm not sure that's true, is it? I think if you have a television and you might therefore watch the BBC, you have to have a licence. I think you can only not have a licence if you don't have a television. I think that's right. I stand to be corrected. But that's ridiculous, isn't it? It's having something and not using it, but being compelled to pay for it is quite ridiculous. I would suggest not only is the BBC not fit for purpose, but it's well past its sell-by date. Maybe in the 1950s when it was created as a public sector broadcaster, it was okay, but that was before the days of Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards, Greg Wallace, and indeed Tim Davie. Thank you very much indeed, Ryan. Sorry to put you on the spot there, mate. Until next time, you won't want to come on with me ever again. That was fun. Informative. We asked the questions that perhaps other people don't want to. This is Talk, 9:25. Back after the break.
The people that we want knives from have knives prior to the knives amnesties. During the knife amnesty, they continue to carry their knives. After the knife amnesty, the people that are still left with the knives are those that we want the knives from. The people that hand it in are normally law-abiding members of the public that might have found a machete in their garage, unlikely to get into the hands of one of the gangs I've just told you about. So the circle goes round and round.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 28 minutes past 9. I'm Russell Quirk, in for Alex Phillips. I'm here till 10 o'clock. Then Peter Cardwell, I think, is already in the building, busily preparing for his show from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock. But meantime, you've got me for another half an hour. Lots and lots of texts from you and calls. We'll get to those in a few minutes' time. But first of all, I want to talk about the Royals. We need to do that this morning because it's a Sunday and because we have Charlotte Griffiths booked, who is brilliant and wonderful and all knowledgeable when it comes to all things royal, editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. Good morning. How are you? Can't hear you. That's better.
About Meghan and Harry, as usual.
So should we start off with that? Should we get the laughing over with?
Yes. Well, I mean, I woke up to a flurry of messages this morning saying that Harry and Meghan are incensed at a
Charlotte, I'm devastated. Why is that?
Harry and Meghan waking up incensed is quite a regular occurrence. But on this occasion, it's because in Andrew Lowney's book, which has been sensationally serialised in the Daily Mail yesterday and in today's Mail on Sunday, he's saying that Andrew warned Harry that he hadn't done his due diligence on Meghan's background and that their relationship wouldn't last more than a month. And they've come out this morning and very angrily denied this and said no conversation ever took place. I have to say, it sounded like exactly the kind of thing that Andrew would say, because he's so, unbelievably rude. And
well, as we've seen elsewhere this week, where he berated someone and called them, what did he call them, incompetent or something for not addressing his mother, the Queen, when she was alive correctly. But sorry, can I just get this clear in my mind? We have the blemished and entirely tarnished Prince Andrew critiquing the fact that somebody hasn't checked out somebody else's background correctly. He has some brass neck, doesn't he, Charlotte?
That's such a good point. Yes, he's not exactly well known for doing his own due diligence.
Pots and kettles, mate, I think they say in Essex. Pots and kettles.
That's a good point. It's so funny because these are the two black sheep of the family, aren't they? Harry and Andrew. And there haven't really been many reports in the past about what their relationship's really like. So it's so interesting to see that these two men sort of hate each other. I mean, according to Andrew Lowney's book, Harry absolutely hates his uncle. And as of this morning, he probably hates him even more now.
Well, I guess, and it's a close call, isn't it, in terms of who is the most disliked, maybe even despised royal in Britain. I mean, it's quite a competition. They kind of trade places, those two, I think, don't they? But I think they should both keep their heads down, frankly. But what is this about punches being thrown? Is that something else that's also been suggested or alleged in the same account, the same book?
Yeah, same book. So in 2013, Andrew said something behind Harry's back. We don't know what it was. And they had a punch-up, according to this book. And apparently Andrew came off worse, had a bloody nose.
What? Sorry, this is royal fisticuffs.
Royal fisticuffs. And we all know what happened last time Harry had royal fisticuffs. It was the famous dog bowl incident when he had fisticuffs with William, and it will now go down in history. But it turns out that, Harry's got a history for getting in punch-ups with his relatives.
Can you just imagine the scene, Charlotte? Sorry, I just imagine, these two, pompous idiots kind of jousting around some Kensington Palace ballroom, kind of all Queensberry rules with their dukes up, come and get them kind of thing. I mean, to be a fly on the wall, Charlotte, to be a fly on the wall. But we think it actually came to blows, according to this book.
According to this book, it actually came to blows. I mean, I would say that in 2013, Harry was very rugged. I mean, he still is, really, but he'd been in the army, obviously, for 10 years. He was quite a strong man. Andrew was, of course, in the army as well for years, but by then was probably getting a little bit more on the rotund.
Well, and do you know what I heard, Charlotte? I heard that in that fight, Andrew didn't even break into a sweat.
Oh, well, of course, Andrew can't sweat famously, and, you know, never has done ever since he was shot at in the Falklands War, because he's such
Isn't it great to be in a country where we can take the mickey out of our royal family? You couldn't do this in every country, could you? But or maybe in the future you won't be able to do it here either. OK, so do we think this is real? Do we think this is true?
I have to say, I mean, the thing that I've always loved about the royals is that they're basically a sort of soap opera. I always say they're like posh EastEnders. So, you know, well, I mean, hasn't every family in the country got a sort of slightly awkward, difficult uncle and the odd punch-ups on Christmas?
It's me, by the way, in my family. If anyone's asking or wondering, it's me in my family. Yes, that's true. That's true.
I think that is why the nation sort of loves the royals, because yes, they have helicopters and palaces, but underneath it all, the family dynamics, although they're much more extreme, are very much the same. You know, the families don't always get on, and you know, they sometimes even come to blows after a few sherries at Christmas. I don't actually know if this one was at Christmas after a few sherries, but it just shows how sensitive Harry is, because it's to do with something that Andrew had said behind his back. You know, most nephews would just say, oh, that's my pompous old uncle, you know, he's always mouthing off. Who knows what he said behind my back, but who cares?
Do we have any hint, Charlotte, of what that was that was said? Presumably it was a slur against Meghan, was it?
Well, it was in 2013, so I think it was before that time. But we do know he's, of course, very sensitive about Meghan, because he's come out today, his team have come out today and angrily denied what Andrew did say about Meghan, which presumably was around 2016 when she came on the scene.
And what did he say?
He said, you haven't done your due diligence. This relationship won't last more than a month. And he was just very scathing about the relationship. And it sounds to me like what Andrew was doing was articulating what a lot of the other royal family members were saying at the time, but behind Harry's back.
Well, he probably meant it shouldn't last more than a month, and I would have to agree and say that was probably a correct supposition back at the time. Maybe Harry was miffed because Andrew was going to reveal something that otherwise Harry wanted to reveal in his book or in a Netflix show, perhaps. You know, as we know how driven financially and commercially Harry is.
Well, it's interesting that Harry didn't mention this in his book, so I suppose that gives credence to his claim that it didn't really happen. But I would have thought that if it did happen, you know, Harry would have detailed it, because, of course, whenever Harry's the victim in a situation, it's detailed in the book Spare. And he didn't mention it, so I do find that quite interesting.
Isn't it incredible that we're in a situation here, Charlotte, where we have to decide between who is telling the truth between Prince Andrew and Prince Harry? It's a rather tall order in terms of picking the integrity of either individual, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, the thing is about Andrews, I think he purposefully lies and covers up misdemeanours that he's done. Whereas with Harry, he lives in a world...
Like staying with paedophiles after they've been charged and convicted of paedophilia. Yeah, that's not a great look, is it?
Point, yeah, no, I mean, Andrew very much deliberately lied in that Newsnight interview, if not countless other times. Whereas the thing about Harry is he does believe what he's saying, and that's why we have this famous phrase, recollections may vary.
So do we think Andrew's deceitful and Harry's just thick?
I don't think Harry's thick. I mean, actually, I don't think he's the brightest button in the royal family, but I do think that he just believes that he's the victim in every situation. So he will interpret reality, twist it in his mind, and then parrot it back out in a different way. So the truth is altered in his mind, and that's why we have this whole debate about whether he's speaking his truth or the truth.
His truth. Sorry, how many truths can there be?
Well, this is the famous thing about Harry and Meghan. There are two truths. You know, this is why the Queen famously said, recollections may vary.
Recollections may vary. And look, before you go, I'm interested in buying a helicopter. Do you know where there might be one available?
There's a second-hand, dodgy old chopper on sale at the back of an auction house. There's the Queen. The Queen is selling, well, the late Queen's estate is selling her helicopter because the King is buying two eco-friendly £8.5 million helicopters.
Whoa, hang on, sorry. Eco-friendly and helicopter do not go in the same sentence.
Yes.
Unless it runs, what do they plug it in like a hairdryer? I mean, is it an electric helicopter?
They use these fuel cells, don't they? These biofuel cells. I have to say, I haven't drilled down.
Oh my goodness, it's like that carbon exchange thing where, you know, you can go out and buy a car that does 9 to the gallon, but as long as you plant a tree every 6 weeks, it offsets it. Isn't that what it was called, carbon offset? Is that the same with Royal Helicopters? There's some kind of carbon offset thing.
Well, I think when Prince Harry uses private jets, he claims to do the carbon offset thing, which is also what Leonardo DiCaprio and others do. But that's kind of been discredited as a way of offsetting your carbon. So I think what the King does, what he tends to do is change the fuel. So he'll use recycled bio oil or different kinds of fuel cells. Rather than just carbon offsetting, he actually tries to make sure the engine fuels in a more eco-friendly way.
Could I just suggest he just doesn't use a helicopter?
Well, the thing is, he does have to get around to all his engagements, so he has to be in 3 different places at the same time. He's obviously discontinued the Royal Train, and he does drive around in these eco-friendly Land Rovers as well.
He's got an Aston Martin DB5, and I have to tell you, an Aston Martin DB5, I know a thing about cars. In fact, I'm going to a car event in about 20 minutes, actually. See you at Bicester at Megaphonics for those that are going. He has an Aston Martin DB5, which is from the 1960s, which is worth about £500,000, which he, and I kid you not, I think he's converted it to run on potato peelings or something, hasn't he?
That is exactly it, and I think that's
true, right? I haven't just made that up. That's true.
More about than I do, but that's got to be a good thing as long as it's something recycled and it's not oil.
Well, I got to say, Aston Martin owners won't be very happy with that. That's what we would call classic car sacrilege, I think. So maybe the helicopters are going to run on potato peelings.
Well, that's exactly what they are going to do. They are kind of some sort of eco-friendly. I really should have done my mechanics lesson before I started this interview, but he has found ways, just like with the Aston Martin. And there was a yacht that William is rumoured to have sailed on last week that also was some sort of eco-friendly yacht using rechargeable cells.
What does that run on? Grass cuttings or something?
I think that one was some sort of electric super yacht. Does such thing exist?
It's such a load of nonsense, isn't it? Look, do you know what? If you want to be eco-friendly, just don't travel by car. Don't travel by plane. You know, I mean, rather than somehow pretending that you're mitigating the fact that you want to fly around the world and do 100,000 miles a year or sail on a yacht during the summer and you're concerned about your green credentials, just don't do it. I mean, it's just obvious, but of course they can't not do it. All of these celebrities, whether it's Hugh Grant, Emma Thompson or whoever, because of course they want to live in the lap of luxury, but they also want a virtue signal, so they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, and I think King Charles is in exactly the same position.
I agree with that when it comes to the private jets and the yachts. I totally agree. I think I'm slightly on their side about the helicopter, because even the Queen uses
helicopter. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Charlotte, but this is such fun. 2 helicopters.
Well, 2 is quite a lot, isn't it? Why does he need 2? Maybe
I think 1's a lot for most of us. I think 2 is maybe slightly excessive.
His rationale is that he goes all around the country visiting people, and it allows him to do his double down on his duty. And don't forget, he does have cancer, and he does need to get around somehow.
Hang on, what's that got to do with it?
Well, you know, if you're doing long journeys in a car or in a train, you know, it's kind of difficult if you've got cancer and he's got to go and have his cancer treatment. He flies down from Balmoral every week to have his cancer treatment in London.
And lands on the top of the hospital, does he? Yeah, not really buying that. I don't think he needs 1, let alone 2 helicopters. So this helicopter that they're selling on behalf of the late Her Majesty the Queen, and how much is it?
I think it is £5 million.
Tommy in the gallery will know. Tommy is all things royal expert. He is scratching his head. Oh, he's on the phone. All right, he'll tell us in a minute. So how much do you think it is, Charlotte? £5 million?
I think it's $5 million. She flew it from 2009 to 2022, and it's got a special corgi area in it.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, Charlotte, I'm interrupting you again. Tommy, so he genuinely is a royal expert. He's just been telling me all about the Danish royal family. It's fascinating. No, Tommy, it is. How much is the helicopter that's being sold by the late Her Majesty the Queen? Charlotte, I know that you're on tenterhooks here. We all need to know how much it is. And do you know what? The question therefore needs to be, while Tommy's looking that up, because he doesn't know, and I'm very disappointed in you, Thomas, where does the money go?
I'm sure it'll go towards buying these new helicopters. 0.5 million quid. Do you know the thing I was most surprised at, and you'll be interested in this because you're a car person, is that they're also selling the Queen's second-hand Range Rover, which she drove from 2006 to 2008, for £70,000. I think that is kind of scraping the barrel. Did the royal family need to sell the late Queen's historic second-hand Land Rovers. I would have kept hold of that.
Well, as we're on that subject, and for anyone that is of a car nut persuasion, as I am, the late Princess Diana's Escort RS Turbo was sold at auction about 2 or 3 years ago. Now, those cars are worth about £50,000 or £60,000. I think I remember correctly, and again I'm going to turn to Dave in the gallery for this because he's also a bit of a car nut. I think that car sold for £600,000. It wasn't owned by the Diana estate, it changed hands, but that is the extent of what a £720,000. Sorry, £720,500, says Dave, to be absolutely exact. That is the extent of the provenance that goes with a vehicle of any kind being sold by the royal family. So I think 70 grand probably understates it, Charlotte, actually, for that Range Rover.
Yeah, I think it's so understated as to be absurd. Why would they even need to sell it? That's the number. I was also surprised by how low the number was. But as you say, I'm sure it'll go for more because it's the late Queen's. Maybe they should have held on to it for another 10 years or so, because I think with that Diana one, didn't it get sold many, many years after her death? So by then it was really extraordinarily sought after.
We should do a follow-up, actually, you and I, on who buys that helicopter. So it'd be great to find out which millionaire or billionaire, if they haven't already left the country, frankly, as 16,000 a year are currently under this Labour government, who actually buys the Queen's helicopter. Fascinating stuff. Charlotte, thank you very much indeed. That was fascinating. Sorry to keep interrupting you, but that was we were on a roll. I had to keep it going because it was fun. Well, I think it was anyway. Charlotte, thank you very much indeed. Until next time, I'm Russell Quirk. This is Talk. Back for more of this mayhem after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 10:15, so I'm sniggering because I know what's coming up. You don't yet. I'm just about to tell you. 15 minutes of this, then Peter Cardwell. We're going to take your calls and read out some text before the end of the show because I've neglected those, I'm afraid, because there's been so much to talk about with so many guests, so much fast-moving stuff here. And I do hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm back tomorrow, by the way. I'm covering for Ian Collins between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. tomorrow, Monday. But before I go, let's do a slightly silly story. Fish and chips, the nation's favourite food, or at least it was. I think actually, isn't curry Britain's favourite food now? But anyway, it's one of the favourite dishes of Britain. A particular journalist at our friends at The Sun, Tom Bryden, has test-driven a load of fish and chip meals across the country, and he joins me now. Tom Bryden, wow, are you 25 stone?
I wasn't until this week.
What have you done, and why did you do this? This is brilliant.
So it's actually a really interesting reason. Obviously, we all know we like fish and chips. Everybody likes it. But who likes it the most in the country? Well, it turns out there was a study and it found out Scarborough has 93 fish and chip shops in total.
93 in one town?
In one town. And it's not the biggest town either. And so statistically, it's got the highest number of fish and chip shops per head in the entire country.
I mean, Scarborough, how many people are in Scarborough, do you know? I mean, what's the population of Scarborough?
To be honest, I don't know at all.
20, 30,000, it's not that big, is it? 93. So, and presumably most of them are only open during summer season, are they?
Well, no, actually. Seems like they have it.
61,000 people in Scarborough has just been uttered in my ear. So 61,000, 93 fish and chip shops. So someone will do the maths on that, how many fish and chip shops there are per individual. But that's the highest number of fish and chip shops per capita in Britain, you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
And you didn't test all 93 of them, surely?
No, that was the aim, I have to say.
Was it? How many did you get through?
So I made 12. So I decided to focus on the ones in the
12? It's not many.
Oh my God, trust me, it's a lot when you're.
Did you do it? I mean, over what period of time?
Just an afternoon.
What? Okay, that is quite a lot. So hang on, 12 fish and chip suppers in an afternoon. All right, so talk us through. This is a bit of a silly 10 minutes. This, forgive me, but it is Sunday morning, everybody. As you're waking up to this on Talk. Talk us through the variation, I guess, in terms of fish and chip suppers throughout Scarborough in particular.
Yeah, so I think Scarborough actually matches the variation you get across the country, because you've got the ones which are on the seafront, you've got the ones sort of, the more working class ones, a bit further back in the middle of town. For starters, haddock or cod, that's the big question. Now in Scarborough, haddock is preferred.
Is it? I'm a cod guy.
Yeah. I was a cod guy until I went to Scarborough, and they taught me their ways. But haddock's a bit sweeter, stronger flavour. But that's only the start of it. So obviously the freshness of the fish matters, and then when it comes to batter, I was taught, because I actually lucky enough to have a go making it, and you want it the perfect amount of consistency.
What, the batter? Right, okay. And can I just say to everybody that hasn't seen your headline, I don't know if it was yours or your sub, the headline in The Sun related to this story is, wait for it, nobody does it batter. Was that your handiwork, Tom?
It was not. It was my subs. To be fair, to their credit, they do an excellent job.
Okay, so I've just been told there's a chip shop for every 670 people in Scarborough.
Yeah, I can certainly believe that. And when I went around, they all agreed. They're like, we're very busy.
So Tom, did you pick a winner?
So it was. I did, to be fair.
Okay, you can name them, surely. I mean, we should big up the fish and chip shops.
Yeah, so I had two. I'll just remind myself, actually, because there were two who came top. One was Winking Willie's, which was a really, really lovely. I know. But it was a lovely fish and chip shop.
Sorry, you're going to have to say it again for the benefit of everybody that just thinks, I think he just said Winky's Willie's. What did you just say?
Winking Willie's.
Winky's Willie's. Winking Willie's. Okay. And did that come top because of the name of the shop, or because the haddock and chips was the best?
But a bit of both. The name of the shop put a smile on my face, but then I'd say the haddock and chips was absolutely delicious. And then the batter itself as well, really crispy. So a perfect transition. None of that sort of gooey layer you sometimes get in between the batter.
And is that just because of the freshness of the batter and the fish? Do you think it had just been, I was going to say baked then? I think it's fried, isn't it? It's just been fried?
Yes, yeah. So actually, this is the other thing I learned, is the busier a fish and chip shop is, the better the fish and chips will actually taste. Because the oil gets turned over more and more and more. It really was fascinating. I didn't know there was this much behind it, because I'm used to just going to the counter, ordering it, and getting a lovely meal after. But there's so much.
So Tom, you're now going to have to give the people listening, just before you go, can you give us 2 or 3 top tips on what to look for when it comes to buying fish and chips next Friday, as many people still do, as a tradition in this country, of course?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the first thing is go when they're busy, because, as I said, that will be nicer than others. And the other thing is look for a queue outside, because people aren't wrong. On the other hand, support your local as well.
And sorry, say that again, mate. Sorry.
Just support your local. That's the main thing, because also
but mate, you can't support all of them. There's 93 of them in Scarborough.
Well, if I can do it, anyone else?
Well, you did 12, which is not a bad effort, I suppose. Look, you've gone above and beyond, and hopefully, look, you will get a commensurate promotional pay rise for kind of taking one for the team here and having to eat 13 or so fish and chip suppers in Scarborough in one afternoon. Tom Bryden, the 25-stone fish and chip expert from The Sun. Tom, thank you very much indeed. I think we're going to a break now. So we're going to go to a break, and then we're going to come back with your calls, voice notes, texts. And if anyone wants to talk about fish and chips, Yeah, don't, because I think we've had enough of that now. We've done that. But we have got a load of voice notes and a load of texts, and hopefully we'll squeeze a call or two in. This is Russell Quirk thoroughly enjoying himself on Talk Breakfast. Back after this.
You can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not
time. Don't tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people. Then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back for the last 5 minutes of this show. Peter Caldwell coming up in a second. I have to say, I really have enjoyed this morning. It was worth getting up at 3:15 this morning for. A real variety, I hope you agree. Some serious stuff, some debate, obviously our head-to-head, which I think was great. A little bit shouty, but look, that's why not? Let's have debate and listen to both sides, I suppose, and then you can pick a side. And a bit of fun stuff, particularly Dean's choice of kind of the last story of the day, the whole fish and chips thing, which, let's be honest, the serious side of that is it is an institution that must be promoted and protected. I said earlier on that I love calls, I love texts, and I love voice notes, and genuinely thank you for this. We've had loads and loads. We haven't had time for many of them, but we're going to go through some voice notes now before we go, because obviously in 3 or 4 minutes I'm going to be talking to Peter Cardwell about what he's got coming up in the next 3 hours. Let's hear first of all from Steve, who's an Army veteran.
My name's Steve from Arbroath in Scotland. I'm a veteran Royal Marine, served from 1985 until 2007. Now, when I was in, we used to go away and they'd put up, like when we had in Kosovo, the Army would put up a TFA, temporary field accommodation, made out of porta cabins all locked together and all the rest of it. Very safe, very secure, full galley facilities, full shower and washing facilities, as in, and on all the things that go with it. Why can't we just put one of them up somewhere in a Scottish island or whatever? And there's 4 million ex-veterans, get them to guard it. I'm sure they would love to have a job. Same as in Afghan, in Bastion. That didn't take long to build up, and that was all secure with all the HESCO baskets and everything on the outside. Why don't we do something like that? Great show, guys. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Steve. Also, Karen's got something to say about my lovely friend Jim Dale, apparently.
Hi, Russell.
Get him off your show, that Jim Dale. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, it's far right press, it's far right this. We're not far right. We're ordinary citizens that are fearing for our safety and our children's safety. Not just women being raped, Russell. Remind this man that a man got raped outside a church in Harrow. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. These people shouldn't be here in the first place. We have our own criminals to deal with, let alone ferrying in these people that don't care about women and children and who think they are there to be raped. I have listened to people where these people won't take a no for an answer. They just keep coming and coming and coming at people. When people say no to them, they don't take no for an answer. When is this going to stop? How many more of us have got to be raped and killed? I'm sick of it. Get that man off your show.
Well, we listened to both sides. Look, Jim certainly was a bit of a far-left migrant apologist, wasn't he? Let's see what Matt has to say about, indeed, the subject of the so-called far-right.
Russell, Matt in Hove here. This notion that the protesters are far-right is so ridiculous. They are women and children and families and normal people with normal jobs that get nothing for free. I run a business. I've worked for 25 years. I've paid into the system. So have you. So have they. And we get nothing for free. We don't get a coffee for free and walk down the street. We don't get a tracksuit for free. I mean, in Hove, the only thing I can do for free is on the seafront go and use the toilet. That is it. Whereas these people have rocked up illegally and get everything for free. Hotel, food, fags, scratch cards, money, 3 meals a day. It is ludicrous. We've had enough.
And of course, Matt, don't forget dentistry and trampoline lessons and 45 grand's worth of McDonald's if you happen to be in the Nottingham area as an asylum seeker. So thanks to